Grave Matters of the Heart. The Grave Matter Mysteries, Book 5, by Win Valentine. Copyright 2026 by Win Valentine. All rights reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced in any form or by any electronic or mechanical means, including information storage and retrieval systems, without written permission from the author, except for the use of brief quotations in a book review. For Vellum, Chapter 1. The Arrival. Hurricanes usually have the courtesy to give a warning. You get a drop in barometric pressure, a darkening sky, or at least a frantic weatherman on the Weather Channel standing sideways in the wind. Lenie Bouvier didn't do warnings. She did arrival times. "She's crossing the county line," V whispered, clutching her phone like it was an unpinned grenade. "My cousin in Fort Myers just texted. She stopped for gas at the Wawa near the interstate. That puts her 20 minutes out." I looked up from the counter of Wiccan Wire, where I was attempting to perform surgery on V's antique cash register. The drawer had jammed midway through a transaction for 3 dried lizard tails and a votive candle labeled, "Bless this hot mess." "V," I said, wiping graphitide grease onto a rag. "Breathe. She's your mother, not a Category 5. "You don't understand," V said, pacing the narrow aisle between the jars of pickled okra and the shelves of protective herbs. She was wearing a silk caftan that looked like a kaleidoscope had exploded in a tie-dye factory, but her usual regal posture had collapsed. She looked small. "Lenie doesn't visit, she inspects. The last time she came to Fallows, she told Mayor Higgins his tie was an aesthetic crime and reorganized my entire inventory by vibrational frequency instead of alphabetical order. It took me 6 months to find the mugwort." "The shop looks great," I lied. It looked like a swamp witch had held a yard sale during a tornado, but that was the Wiccan Wire brand. "And Rourke moved out of the guest room last week, so at least the sheets are clean." "The guest room!" V shrieked, stopping in front of a mirror that was supposedly haunted by a vain Victorian. "The feng shui is hostile. The mirror faces the bed. It invites restless spirits." "It invites you to fix your hair in the morning," I corrected, finally getting the drawer to click shut. "Relax. We handled a murder in a flooded crypt. We handled a collector who tried to burn down my house. We can handle a wedding planner from New Orleans." "It's not just a visit, Merritt. She's getting married." I paused. "Again?" "Number 4, V sighed, leaning against the counter. "Or 5. I lost count after the jazz drummer who stole the silver tea service." "Who is it this time?" "A developer," V said, checking her reflection one last time. "Dirk Taggart, some big shot from Atlanta who wants to revitalize the coast. She met him at a charity gala for, I think it was endangered marsh grass or something equally ironic." "A developer," I repeated. The word tasted like chalk dust. Fallows didn't take kindly to developers. We liked our rot. "And she's bringing him here?" "He's pitching a project," V said. "Something massive. Fallows Landing, condos, a marina, a golf course on the sinking grounds." "A golf course?" I laughed. "On the swamp? He'll need water wings for the carts." "He has investors," V said grimly. "And he has my mother. Which means he's unstoppable." Outside, a car horn blared. Not a polite toot, a long, demanding blast that sounded like a royal decree echoing off the brick storefronts. V froze. "She's here." I walked to the window. A pearl-white Cadillac Escalade was parked halfway onto the sidewalk, effectively blocking the fire hydrant. The driver's door opened, and a woman stepped out into the humid Georgia afternoon. Lenie Bouvier was 60, but she looked a dangerous, well-maintained 45. She wore a white linen suit that defied the physics of mud, oversized sunglasses, and a hat with a brim wide enough to shelter a small family. She didn't walk, she glided, surveying the street with the critical eye of a general inspecting a particularly disappointing front line. "Showtime," I murmured. The bell above the door chimed, a cheerful sound that felt woefully inadequate for the moment. "Veronica!" Lenie's voice filled the shop. It was rich, smoky, and laced with a Creole accent that was about 40% affectation and 60% threat. "Mama," V whispered, stepping forward to accept the double-cheek air kiss. Lenie pulled back, holding V by the shoulders. She scanned her daughter from head to toe, her lips pursing slightly. "That caftan," Lenie said. "It's very brave. Is it vintage? Or just tragic?" "It's silk, Mama," V said, her voice shrinking. "It's loud," Lenie corrected. She turned her gaze to me. "And you must be the little mason, the one who plays with bricks." "Merritt Vance," I said, extending a hand. "I own the bricks. I don't play with them." Lenie looked at my hand, calloused, scarred, and currently stained with cash register grease. She smiled, but didn't reach out. "Charmed," she said. "I've heard so much about you. Veronica tells me you live in a garage." "A carriage house," I corrected. "And it's stormproof." "Practical," Lenie noted, her eyes flicking to my work boots. "Like your footwear." She swept past me, running a gloved finger along a shelf of dusty skulls. "Dirk is parking the beast," she announced. "The streets in this town are charmingly narrow. It's like driving through a museum exhibit on poverty." "We like the narrow streets," I said, feeling the familiar hackles rise on the back of my neck. "They keep the tour buses out." "Oh, darling," Lenie laughed, a sound like ice tinkling in a glass. "Nothing keeps progress out. It just paves over you." The door opened again, letting in a blast of hot air and the scent of expensive cologne. Dirk Taggart ducked to enter. He was a tall man, tan to the color of a stained teak deck, with silver hair coiffed into a helmet of perfection. He wore a navy blazer with gold buttons, boat shoes, and a smile that had cost at least $20,000. "Honey, I think I hit a planter," he boomed, his voice a deep, radio-friendly baritone. "But I fixed it. I put the geraniums back in the dirt." "Dirk, this is Veronica," Lenie gestured. "And her friend, the laborer, Merritt," I said, forcing a smile. "Pleasure." Dirk grabbed my hand and pumped it. His grip was firm, dry, and entirely too enthusiastic. "Love the shop. Very rustic, authentic. The tourists will eat this up. We could put a kiosk like this in the lobby of the hotel. So, what is this? Dried chicken feet?" "Alligator," I said, "for protection." "Protection from what?" Dirk winked. "Bad real estate deals?" He laughed at his own joke. It was a practiced laugh, a boardroom laugh designed to fill silence and disarm critics. But as he laughed, I felt it. Usually, the hum, the low-level psychic static I picked up from the stone and soil of Fallows, warned me about ghosts. It buzzed for spirits, hummed for history, and screamed for danger. It was the constant background noise of my life, a connection to the damp earth beneath the pavement. When I touched Dirk's hand, the hum didn't scream. It clicked like a camera shutter, or a lock engaging on an empty safe. Hollow, not the dark, consuming void of Silas Blackwood. Dirk wasn't supernatural. He was just empty. A papier-mâché man, all veneer and no structural integrity. There was no depth to him, no history to anchor him. He was surface level, built on a foundation of charm and leverage. But behind him, I looked past Dirk, through the open door, to the street. A young man was leaning against the Escalade, He was looking at the shop with a mix of boredom and intensity. He was younger than Dirk, my age, late 20s. He wore a gray t-shirt covered in drywall dust and work boots that had actually seen work. The hum buzzed, a sharp, resonant note. Structure, load, stress. The young man looked up. His eyes met mine through the dirty glass. They were gray, intelligent, and tired. "Who's that?" I asked. "That's Chase," Dirk said, waving a hand dismissively. "My son, the architect. Genius with CAD, terrible with people. He's sulking because I made him drive the last 3 hours." "He looks like he works for a living," I observed. "He overthinks," Dirk corrected. "He worries about drainage and environmental impact." I tell him, "Chase, that's what lawyers are for. Am I right?" He turned his grin on V. "So, Veronica, the wedding. We're thinking small, intimate. Just 300 or so of our closest friends. We want to do it here, in the square, under the statue of, who is that guy? General Failure? General Fallows, V said through gritted teeth. Right, him. We'll drape some tulle, hire a jazz band. It'll be the kickoff event for Fallows Landing. Marrying the old South to the new future. Great tagline, right? You want to use my mother's wedding as a marketing stunt? V asked, her voice trembling. It's synergy, darling. Lenie cut in, adjusting V's collar with a proprietary tug. And don't look so horrified. You're the maid of honor. I need you to lose 5 pounds and find a dress that isn't a tent. V looked like she was going to cry. Or explode. Her hands were shaking. I stepped in. Usually, I let families handle their own mess. I stayed in my lane. I fixed stone, I ignored ghosts, and I went home to my quiet carriage house. But I looked at V's face. I looked at Lenie's predator smile. I looked at Dirk's hollow eyes. And I made a choice. I didn't wait for the hum. I didn't wait for a ghost to point a finger. I moved. I stepped between V and Lenie, physically blocking the line of sight. Actually, I said, my voice hard as granite, V is busy. She has inventory to catalog. And the square is booked. Booked? Dirk frowned. By who? By the structural engineer, I lied smoothly. The statue is unstable. Foundation issues. It's a hard hat zone. No weddings. Liability waiver required just to walk the dog. I can fix that, Dirk said. I have a crew coming in Monday. Union crew? I asked. Because Local 404 is very particular about scabs touching historic monuments. Dirk blinked. There's a union? There is now, I said. Me. I turned to Lenie. V will meet you for dinner. At O'Connell's. 7 o'clock. Until then, she's working. And this is a place of business, not a bridal salon. Lenie stared at me over her sunglasses. For a second, the mask slipped. I saw a flash of genuine irritation, maybe even respect. Well, Lenie said, smoothing her gloves. Aren't you a little pit bull? I'm a mason, I repeated. We protect the foundation. Come, Dirk. Lenie turned on her heel. Let's go check into the B&B. I need a martini. The humidity is attacking my blowout. They swept out of the shop, the bell jingling frantically behind them. I watched them get into the Escalade. I watched Chase, the son, open the door for them. He looked back at the shop one last time. He didn't look at his father. He looked at the brickwork of the storefront. He was studying the lintel, tracing the mortar lines with his eyes. The hum buzzed again. Crack. The Escalade drove off, leaving a cloud of exhaust in the heavy air. Oh my God, V exhaled, collapsing onto a stool. You just lied to my mother and the developer. There is no union. There is, if Jasper files the paperwork fast enough, I said. She's going to kill me, V moaned. She's going to criticize me to death. No, I said, because you're not going to let her. You have a choice, V. I don't. She's Mama. She's a guest, I said, and guests don't dictate the renovation schedule. I looked out the window. The street was quiet again, but the air felt heavy. Not just the heat, the pressure. Dirk Taggart is bad news, I said. He feels wrong. He's a salesman, V dismissed. They all feel wrong. No, I said. He feels scripted, and he wants to build on the sinking grounds. Everyone tries to build on the sinking grounds, V said. And then their basement floods, and they leave. This felt different, I said. He didn't care about the mud. He ignored it, which means he either doesn't know or he has a plan to bury it. I grabbed my keys from the counter. Where are you going? V asked. Town hall, I said. If he's pitching Fallows Landing, he filed permits. I want to see the blueprints. Merritt, stay out of it. It's just a wedding. It's never just a wedding, I said. It's a merger, and I want to know what they're acquiring. I walked to the door. Call Jasper, I shouted back. Tell him to put on his best suit. We're going to crash a planning meeting. V groaned. I hate it when you get proactive. It's the new me, I said, pushing the door open. Less haunting, more hunting. I stepped out into the crushing heat. The hum was waiting for me. It wasn't loud. It wasn't demanding. It was just a low, steady purr of approval, like a cat that had just spotted a mouse. Go. Chapter 2. The Pitch. The Fallows Town Hall was a building having an identity crisis. Built in the 1920s, it had the columns of a courthouse, the utilitarian brickwork of a textile factory, and the ventilation of a crypt. Tonight, it smelled of lemon floor wax, stale popcorn, and the specific, desperate sweat of local politics. The main assembly room was packed. Folding chairs had been set up in tight rows, filled with the usual suspects. The garden club, front row, judgmental hats. The business association, middle rows, hopeful ties. And the chorus of disgruntled retirees who showed up to every meeting just to complain about the potholes on Elm Street. Back row, arms crossed. Jasper and I stood in the standing room only section at the very back. This is a mistake, Jasper whispered, adjusting his glasses. He was wearing his serious director's suit, navy blue, sensible tie, but he looked like he wanted to hide under a desk. We are not on the agenda, Merritt. You can't just heckle a developer. It's a public forum, I said, scanning the room. I'm a member of the public. You are a menace to the public, Jasper corrected. Mayor Higgins is already glaring at us. He was right. Mayor Higgins sat on the dais, flanked by the town council. He was sweating profusely under the stage lights, his comb-over a feat of structural engineering that was barely holding up against the humidity. Every few seconds, his eyes darted to me, then to the man standing at the podium. Dirk Taggart looked like he had been born at a podium. He didn't use notes. He had a laser pointer, a winning smile, and a screen the size of a billboard behind him. Ladies and gentlemen of Fallows, Dirk's voice boomed, amplified by a microphone that, for once, didn't screech feedback. What I'm offering you tonight isn't just a development. It's a lifeline. He clicked the remote. The screen lit up with a high-definition rendering. The crowd gasped. It was beautiful. I had to admit it. The rendering showed the sinking grounds, currently a mosquito-infested stretch of marsh and kudzu, transformed. There was a marina with gleaming white sailboats, a boardwalk lined with gas lamps, and rows of pastel townhouses that looked like they belonged in Charleston, not Fallows. Fallows Landing, Dirk announced. A mixed-use community that respects the heritage of this town while embracing the future. We're talking 200 luxury units, a deep water marina, and a boutique hotel that will bring tax revenue we haven't seen since the indigo trade. And the swamp? Mrs. Gable, Jr., called out from the front row. What about the smell? Gone. Dirk smiled, flashing teeth that were whiter than the projection screen. We're going to mitigate the wetlands. Engineered drainage. We'll turn that stagnant water into a flowing, ornamental canal system. It will be the Venice of Georgia. The crowd murmured approval. Venice, someone whispered. That sounds expensive. We're bringing jobs, Dirk continued, pressing the advantage. Construction jobs, service jobs. We're bringing retail. A Starbucks. A hush fell over the room. A Starbucks? In Fallows? It was like promising a spaceport. He's good, Jasper admitted grudgingly. He's hitting all the pain points. He's lying, I said. I was looking at the screen. Not at the pretty boats. I was looking at the grade. The rendering showed the townhouses sitting level with the boardwalk. The elevation is wrong, I whispered. The sinking grounds are 3 feet below sea level at high tide. To get that grade, he'd have to fill the marsh with tons of dirt. So, he's a developer. He buys dirt. But where does the water go? I asked. If you fill the basin, the water has to go somewhere. It goes into the water table. The hum hit me then. Not a sound, but a pressure in my ears. I felt the weight of that hypothetical fill dirt. Thousands of tons of red clay pressing down on the limestone aquifer. Pressure. Squeeze. Crack. If he compressed the marsh, the water would be forced up. Up through the path of least resistance. The crypts, I realized aloud. What? Jasper looked at me. If he builds that, I pointed to the screen, the hydraulic pressure will back up into the cemetery, the Vance mausoleum, the potter's field. The coffins won't just float, Jasper. They'll pop out of the ground like corks. Oh, God. Jasper turned pale. The displacement. Exactly. And you have engineering proof? No, I said. I have basic physics and a gut feeling. That is not admissible in a zoning hearing. Watch me. Dirk was winding up for his big finish. So, I asked the council. Dirk spread his arms, inviting the applause. Do you want to stay stuck in the past? Or do you want to sail into the future? I have a question, I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the applause like a chisel finding a fault line. Heads turned. Mayor Higgins groaned audibly into his mic. Miss Vance, the mayor sighed. We are short on time. It's a technical question, I said, walking down the center aisle. The crowd parted for me. I laid my work boots down hard on the hardwood floor. Thud, thud, thud. I stopped 10 feet from the podium. Dirk looked down at me. His smile didn't waver, but the skin around his eyes tightened. Ah, the mason, he said. Merritt, isn't it? Do you have a question about the brickwork? We're planning to use authentic historic Ybor City brick. I don't care about the brick, I said. I care about the water. I pointed to the screen. Your rendering shows the boardwalk at elevation +12, I said. Current grade is +4. That's an 8-foot fill. We're bringing in clean fill, Dirk nodded. Standard procedure. Standard for dry land, I corrected. But that's a karst limestone basin. It's a sponge. You put 8 feet of dirt on top of a sponge. What happens to the water inside? Dirk blinked. We have drainage culverts planned. Culverts handle surface runoff, I said. I'm talking about the hydrostatic pressure. You're compressing the aquifer. That water has to displace. And the nearest outlet is the historic cemetery, which sits at elevation +6. I turned to the council. If he builds this, I said clearly, he will flood the boneyard, not with rain, with groundwater. You won't get Venice. You'll get a soup of swamp water and floating ancestors. The room went dead silent. The image of floating ancestors was a powerful deterrent in the South, where we treat our dead better than our living. That is preposterous, Dirk laughed, but it sounded brittle. My engineers have modeled this. We have a geotech report. Who signed it? I asked. What? The report. Who is the engineer of record? Dirk hesitated. Just a fraction of a second. A micro-flinch. My son, he said. Chase Taggart. He's a licensed structural engineer. Then let's ask him, I said. I turned around. Is he here? I scanned the room. Chase wasn't in the VIP section. He wasn't in the back. He's unavailable, Dirk said quickly. He's reviewing the site. At 8 o'clock at night? I raised an eyebrow. He's very thorough, Dirk said. Look, Miss Vance, I appreciate your concern, truly. But masonry is not hydrology. Leave the science to the experts. I know stone, I said. And I know mud. And I know that if you pour concrete on that marsh, the ground will reject it. Is that a threat? Mayor Higgins asked, banging his gavel weakly. It's a diagnosis, I said. Call it a professional opinion. Thank you, Miss Vance. The mayor banged the gavel harder. Your time is up. I stood there for a second. I let the silence hang, heavy and uncomfortable. I'm just saying, I added, looking directly at Dirk. If you break the seal on the sinking grounds, you might let something out that you can't put back. I walked away. As I marched up the aisle, I felt the eyes. Half the room looked annoyed. I was the town crank, ruining the mood. But the other half, the old-timers in the back, looked thoughtful. They knew the swamp. They knew the smell of bad decisions. Jasper met me at the door. You realized you just accused him of flooding the dead, Jasper whispered as we pushed out into the cool night air. Without a calculator. I don't need a calculator, I said. I saw his face, Jasper. When I asked about the engineer, he hesitated. He lied, I said. Chase Taggart didn't sign off on that drainage plan. Dirk is pushing it through without approval. Or what? Or Chase did sign it, I said. And he knows it's broken, which makes him liable. I looked at the town square across the street. The bronze statue of General Fallows looked down at us, sword drawn, as if defending the town from bad investments. I need to find Chase, I said. If he's the engineer, he's the weak link. Where do we find him? Dirk said he was reviewing the site, I said. That means he's at the swamp. At night? If he's worried about the water tables, I said. Night is the best time to check. High tide is in an hour. Merritt, Jasper grabbed my arm. Lenie arrives tomorrow for the engagement party. You cannot start a war with her fiancé tonight. I didn't start it, I said, unlocking the truck. Dirk started it when he decided to pave over my job security. I climbed into the driver's seat. Are you coming? Jasper sighed. He looked at his Italian loafers. He looked at the muddy tires of my truck. I'm keeping the receipts, he said, climbing in. If I ruin these shoes, I'm billing the Taggart Group. Deal, I said. I started the engine. The hum buzzed in the dashboard. Flow. Rise. Break. The tide was coming in, and it was bringing nothing but trouble. Chapter 3. The Job. The sinking grounds at night looked less like a future luxury resort and more like the place where hope went to drown. The moon was full, casting a milky, cataract haze over the sawgrass and the twisted cypress knees. The air was so thick with humidity you could almost drink it, assuming you liked your water flavored with sulfur and ancient mud. The noise was deafening, a chaotic symphony of bullfrogs, cicadas, and the wet, heavy splash of things eating other things in the dark. I killed the headlights of the truck a quarter mile down the service road. We walk from here, I said. Why? Jasper whispered, clutching the door handle. Are we sneaky peeking? Is that a word? Sneaking up, I corrected. And yes, look, I pointed through the windshield. In the distance, near the edge where the solid ground surrendered to the questionable pudding of the marsh, a light bobbed. A single, focused beam moving methodically back and forth. Someone's out there, Jasper agreed. Maybe it's a ghost? Ghosts don't use high-lumen LED headlamps, I said, grabbing my own flashlight. That's Chase. We stepped out. The smell of the marsh hit us instantly. Rotten eggs, salt, and the rich, cloying scent of decay that fueled the entire ecosystem. We picked our way along the old logging trail. The mud squelched under my boots, a hungry sound. Jasper was trying to walk on his tiptoes to save his shoes, which only made him sink faster. This is not zoning due diligence, Jasper hissed, swatting a mosquito the size of a hummingbird. This is stalking. It's field research, I corrected. We got closer. The figure with the headlamp was standing near a concrete piling, one of the test piers driven last week. He was holding a clipboard and a 4-foot carpenter's level. He placed the level on the concrete cap, checked the bubble, scribbled something furiously, then moved to the next face. He looked frustrated. He looked like a man arguing with gravity. I signaled Jasper to stay back. I stepped out of the tree line. Snap. My boot found a dry twig hidden in the mud. The figure spun around instantly. The beam of his headlamp blinded me. Who's there? His voice was jumpy, high with adrenaline. Turn off the high beams, Taggart, I said, shielding my eyes. You're scaring the gators. Chase Taggart lowered his chin, directing the blinding light at my chest instead of my retinas. Merritt? He asked. The mason? That's me. He reached up and clicked the light to a lower setting. He looked wrecked. His work boots were cakes of red mud. His expensive gray t-shirt was plastered to his back with sweat, and there was a smear of dirt across his cheekbone. He didn't look like an Atlanta heir. He looked like a guy who had been digging ditches since sunrise. What are you doing out here? He asked, wiping sweat from his eyes. Did you come to yell at my dad some more? Because he's at the oyster bar, buying round after round for the zoning board. I know where your dad is, I said. I came to see the guy doing the actual work. What are you measuring, Chase? He hesitated. He looked at the concrete piling, then back at me. Settlement, he said. Sinking rates. And it's sinking, he admitted, his voice tight. Fast. 1/2 inch in 24 hours. That shouldn't happen with friction piles. That's not sinking, I said. That's falling. Chase sighed. He ran a hand through his hair, leaving more mud in his silver blonde locks. I told him, Chase said. I told him the soil counts were garbage. The organic layer is 20 feet deep here. You can't drive piles in peat moss. You have to go to bedrock. Bedrock is 90 feet down, I said. I know, Chase said. Which means these piles are just heavy sticks floating in mud. The townhouses will tilt within a year. It won't be Venice. It'll be the Leaning Tower of Pisa, but with vinyl siding. So why are you building it? Chase looked at me. His eyes were gray and serious, surprisingly clear in the harsh light of the headlamp. Because he's my father, Chase said. And because he leveraged everything for this. The house, the firm, his reputation. If I don't make it work, the company folds. So you're cheating the physics? I'm trying to fix the physics, Chase corrected. I'm looking for a solution. Helical piers, micropiles, chemical grouting. He kicked the piling. It vibrated. The hum buzzed in my jaw. Loose, wet, unstable. You can't fix it from the top down, I said. You have to respect the ground. Chase looked at me, really looked at me. Not like a nuisance, but like a colleague. You know stone, he said. You stood up in that meeting and called out the hydrostatic pressure. No one else in that room even knew what that meant. I read a lot, I said. You're not just a mason, Chase said. You see things. My dad thinks you're a crank, but I saw your eyes when you looked at the blueprints. You saw the failure points before I even clicked the slide. I have good intuition. Chase stepped closer. I need help, he said. I'm not helping you pave the swamp, Chase. Not that, he said. I need an independent assessment. There's an old structure on the property, the surveyor's shack. It's been here since the 20s. My dad wants to demo it tomorrow, but something feels wrong about it. Wrong how? Every time the dozers get close, Chase said quietly, the engines stall, the hydraulic lines blow. The men get spooked. They say it's cold. I froze. Cold spots? I asked. Freezing, Chase nodded. And the ground, it hums. He looked at me with a desperate intensity. You said you know about the something we might let out, Chase said. I think it's in that shack, and I think I need someone who knows how to deal with old foundations. He held out his hand. Hired consultant, he offered. Double your usual rate. Just walk the shack with me. Tell me what's under it before the bulldozers roll at 8. I looked at his hand. Comically muddy. I looked at Jasper, lurking in the shadows of a cypress tree. Jasper was shaking his head frantically. No. Danger. Conflict of interest. I looked back at the swamp. I felt the hum. It wasn't warning me away. It was inviting me in. Curiosity. And I looked at Chase. He was honest. He was scared. And he was strangely compelling in a tortured artist fighting the mud kind of way. Triple my rate, I said. And you buy breakfast. Chase smiled. A real smile this time. Crooked and relieved. Deal. I shook his hand. Zap. Not the hum. Just static. A spark of pure kinetic connection. I pulled my hand back. Chase blinked, looking down at his palm. Take me to the shack, I said, rubbing my hand on my jeans. The surveyor's shack was a rotting wooden box perched on brick piers near the riverbank. It was choked with kudzu, looking like a green, hairy beast sleeping in the dark. It's locked, Chase said, pulling a key ring from his belt that looked like it belonged to a warden. But the lock is rusted solid. Allow me, I stepped forward. I didn't use a key. I used the hum. I placed my hand on the warped wood of the doorframe. Release. The rusty latch groaned, clicked, and swung inward. Chase stared. How did you do that? Humidity, I lied. Wood shrinks at night. We stepped inside. The smell hit us instantly. Not rot, not mold, concrete. Wet, curing concrete. Which was impossible, since the shack hadn't been touched in 50 years. Do you smell that? Chase whispered. Lime, I said. Silica. Ash. I shone my flashlight on the floor. In the center of the room, distinct from the dirt floor, lay a slab. A patch of concrete, rough and hand-mixed, poured directly into the earth. It was etched with a finger. T. Scarrett, 1924. Tom Scarrett, Chase read. Who was he? The original surveyor, I said, the town archives flashing in my mind. He disappeared in 24. The rumor was he ran off with a cocktail waitress from Tampa. I knelt down. I touched the concrete. It was cold. Ice cold. The hum screamed. Here, here, here. He didn't run off, I whispered. He's in the floor? Chase asked, his voice trembling. He is the floor, I corrected. Someone poured him in. To hide him. Or to make him a plug. A plug? A sacrifice, I said. To hold something down. My dad is going to bulldoze this tomorrow, Chase said. If he cracks this slab, you release Tom, I said, and whatever Tom is holding back. Chase looked at me. What do we do? We stop the demo, I said. How? My dad doesn't believe in ghosts. He believes in schedules. He believes in injunctions, Jasper said, stepping out of the shadows. He looked annoyed, swatting at a moth, but his phone was out. I just checked the parcel history. This shack is listed as a historic outbuilding on the 1930 tax map. If we file an emergency injunction for an archaeological assessment, we can halt demolition for 48 hours. Jasper, I smiled. You followed us. I was protecting my investment, Jasper said, eyeing Chase with deep suspicion. And ensuring you didn't do anything reckless, like entering a structurally unsound murder shack. Can you file it tonight? Chase asked Jasper. I can wake up Judge Miller. Jasper checked his watch. He owes me a favor for erasing his parking tickets. Do it, Chase said. Stop the dozers. Your father will be furious, I warned. He'll know it was you. Chase looked at the name in the concrete. T. Scarrett. Let him be furious, Chase said. I'm not building a hotel on top of a crime scene. He looked at me. Is this what you do? He asked. Find the bodies? Mostly I repair chimneys, I said. The bodies are a nuisance. Chase laughed. It was a nervous sound, but genuine. I think I'm going to like working with you, Merritt Vance, he said. Don't get used to it, I said, walking to the door to escape the smell of old concrete. I'm expensive. And I'm difficult. I like difficult, Chase said softly. I caught Jasper's eye. He wasn't smiling. He was looking at Chase like he was a structural flaw in the plan. Let's go, consultant, Jasper said, grabbing my arm. The judge is waiting. We walked back to the truck. I looked back once. Chase was still standing in the shack, his flashlight beam focused on the name in the floor. He was a Taggart. But he was listening to the stone. Maybe there was hope for him yet. Chapter 4. The Crack. I usually love the smell of a construction site in the morning. Raw pine, diesel, and the optimistic scent of fresh sawdust. But this morning, the Taggart site smelled like something else. Rage. Who filed this? Dirk Taggart's voice boomed across the marsh, startling a heron into graceful, panicked flight. He was waving a piece of paper, the emergency injunction Jasper had faxed to the foreman at 6 a.m., like a weapon. He stood in front of the surveyor's shack, effectively blocking the path of a very confused bulldozer operator who just wanted to knock something down and go to lunch. I asked a question, Dirk roared. Who put a stop work order on my demolition? I stepped out of my truck, slamming the door for maximum impact. I was wearing my site visit armor. Steel-toed boots, cargo pants, a hard hat, and a reflective vest that was tailored, because safety didn't have to be frumpy. Good morning, Dirk, I called out, adjusting my tool belt. Lovely day for a delay. Dirk spun around. His face was a dangerously high shade of magenta. You, he pointed a manicured finger at me. You did this. You filed a frivolous historical claim to obstruct my project. I didn't file anything, I said, putting on my best innocent face. The Fallows Historical Society filed it, based on a tip from a concerned structural consultant regarding potential archaeological significance. You? Dirk sneered. Who hired you? The Sierra Club? The Ghostbusters? I did, a voice said. Chase stepped out of the kudzu-choked shack. He looked wrecked. Dark circles under his eyes, clothes rumpled from sleeping in his car. But he was wearing a hard hat. I hired her, Dad, Chase said calmly. To assess the outbuilding. We found evidence of a historical foundation. We have to document it. It's the law. Dirk looked at his son. For a second, the vein in his temple throbbed so hard I thought it might burst. Then he laughed. A cold, dismissive bark. You hired the heckler? Dirk shook his head. Chase, honestly, you're letting the locals play you. This isn't history. It's a shakedown. How much does she want to sign off on the demo? He turned to me, reaching for the inside pocket of his blazer. Name your price, honey. 5 grand? 10? How much to say the shack is just a shack? I looked at the checkbook. It was leather-bound and probably smelled like arrogance. It's not about money, Dirk, I said. It's about the concrete. What concrete? The unique hand-mixed aggregate under that floor, I said. And the fact that it's occupied. Occupied? Dirk frowned. By who? Squatters? By Tom, I said. Dirk stared at me. Then he looked at Chase. Is she high? She found an inscription, Dad, Chase said, his voice steady. T. Scarrett, the missing surveyor from 1924. If she's right, and there are remains under that slab, we can't bulldoze. It's a crime scene. It's a rumor, Dirk yelled. It's a 100-year-old campfire story. You are stopping a $10 million project for a ghost story. I'm stopping it for a crack, I said. I walked past Dirk, heading toward the main garage foundation they had poured last week. It was a massive slab of gray concrete, curing in the Georgia sun, looking solid as an aircraft carrier. What are you doing? Dirk demanded, scrambling to follow me. Your son said the settlement rate was half an inch a day, I said, stepping onto the slab. That means there's a void forming underneath. A sinkhole. The slab is solid, Dirk argued. It's reinforced with number 6 rebar. Rebar holds tension, I lectured, tapping the concrete with the handle of my hammer. But if the dirt underneath goes away, the concrete is just a bridge to nowhere. And eventually, bridges fall. I stopped in the middle of the garage floor. I closed my eyes. The hum was loud here. Not the ghostly buzz of a spirit, but the deep, resonant groan of the earth itself. The limestone basin below us was shifting. The water was moving, eating away the soil, carving out a cavern exactly where I stood. Empty. Hollow. Drop. Here, I said, pointing to a hairline fracture in the concrete. It was barely visible, just a spiderweb line in the smooth gray surface. That's a surface check, Dirk scoffed. Shrinkage crack, normal curing. It's not shrinkage, I said. Do you have a sledgehammer? I am not letting you smash my slab. Chase. I looked at him. Give me the sledge. Chase hesitated. He looked at his father, the man who held the purse strings. Then he walked to the truck bed and grabbed a 10-pound sledgehammer. He handed it to me. You're fired, Dirk told him. Both of you. Just watch, I said. I hefted the hammer. I wasn't big, but I knew mechanics. It wasn't about strength. It was about the arc. I aimed for the hairline crack. Clang! The hammerhead struck the concrete. A shock wave traveled up my arms, vibrating in my teeth. The crack didn't just chip. It ran. It shot across the slab like a lightning bolt, zigzagging 10 feet in both directions. That's not good, Chase whispered. Hit it again, I said to myself. Clang! The sound changed. It wasn't a solid thud. It was a hollow boom, like hitting a giant drumhead. Hear that? I asked Dirk. That's the sound of nothing holding you up. Stop! Dirk yelled, stepping forward. I hit it a third time. Crack! Boom! A chunk of concrete the size of a dinner plate caved in. It fell through the rebar mesh and disappeared into the darkness below. We waited for the sound of it hitting dirt. We waited and waited. Splash! It hit water. Deep water. 10 feet down. You built your garage over a sinkhole, I said, leaning on the hammer handle. And judging by the splash delay, the water table is rising. If you park a car here, Dirk, you're going to lose it. Dirk stared at the ragged hole in his expensive foundation. His face went pale, the bluster draining out of him. It passed inspection, he stammered. Surface inspection, I said. But you didn't check the deep bore. You rushed it. I looked at Chase. He looked vindicated, but also terrified. He had been right, which was the worst thing a son could be to a father like Dirk. History lesson, Dirk, I said. This is the sinking grounds. The land eats things. It ate the original surveyor, and if you're not careful, it's going to eat your investment. Dirk looked at the hole, then at the surveyor's shack, then at me. His eyes narrowed. He calculated. Fix it, he said. Excuse me? You're the expert on mud and ghosts and whatever, Dirk said, his voice regaining its edge. Fix it. Fill the hole. Move the shack. Whatever it takes to get the permits back. I can't fix geology, I said. You have to move the building footprint. No moving, Dirk said. We pour more concrete. We underpin. Chase, figure it out. Dad, you can't just underpin a sinkhole, Chase argued. It's dynamic. Figure it out. Dirk hissed, grabbing Chase's arm. Or the bank pulls the loan. And if the bank pulls the loan, your trust fund goes with it. The firm goes under. Everything. He turned to me. And you, Miss Vance. You want to consult? Fine. Consulting fee is approved, but only if you sign a non-disclosure agreement. No one hears about the sinkhole. Not the council, not the mayor, and especially not Lenie. Lenie? I asked. Why her? Because she hates failure, Dirk said grimly. And I need this wedding to go smoothly. If she hears the ground is falling out from under us, she'll bolt. And she brought the biggest investors to the table. You're marrying her for capital? I asked, disgusted. It's synergy, Dirk repeated. Take the job, Merritt. Save the project. Or I'll tie this historical injunction up in court for 10 years and bankrupt your little historical society friend. I looked at Jasper, who was hiding behind a pile of lumber, looking like he wished he was invisible. I looked at Chase. He looked trapped. The hum buzzed. Trap. Wait. Dig. I needed access. I needed to know what happened to Tom Skerritt. And if I walked away, Dirk would just hire someone else to pour concrete over the body. I'll sign the NDA, I said, but I run the investigation on the shack. My way. No bulldozers until I clear the slab. You have 48 hours. Dirk checked his gold watch. The gala is Saturday night. I want that shack gone and that hole filled by the time the first champagne cork pops. 48 hours, I agreed. Dirk stormed off to his Escalade, barking into his phone. Chase looked at the jagged hole in the floor. We can't fix this in 2 days, he said quietly. No, I said, but we can dig up the truth. And maybe that's enough to stop him. I handed Chase the sledgehammer. Welcome to the team, Taggart, I said. Now grab a shovel. We have a body to exhume. Chapter 5. The Breakdown. The problem with unearthing the dead is that the living don't stop needing you while you do it. I was knee-deep in red clay inside the surveyor shack, the humidity turning the small space into a sauna. Chase and I had been digging for 6 hours. We had cleared the top layer of dirt around the concrete slab, exposing the jagged edges where the pour met the earth. It was definitely a burial pour, rough, hasty, and shaped disturbingly like a human lying in the fetal position. It's grim, Chase said, wiping a smear of mud from his forehead. Whoever did this, they just dumped him and poured. No coffin, no shroud. Concrete is a convenient shroud, I said, chipping away at the hardened earth with my trowel. And in 1924, this was the middle of nowhere. No one would hear the mixer churning. The hum was a constant low-grade headache now. Cold. Weight. Dark. The spirit of Tom Skerritt wasn't violent, just heavy. He was waiting. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. A persistent, angry vibration against my thigh. Popular, Chase noted. It's probably Jasper finding another zoning violation, I said. Or my Aunt Arlene's ghost reminding me to stand up straight. It buzzed a fourth time. I checked the screen. It wasn't Jasper. It was V. 12 missed calls. And one text. SOS. She found the caftans. I have to go, I said, standing up and brushing dirt from my knees. What? Now? Chase halted his shovel, looking at the half-excavated slab. We're close, Merritt. If we keep digging, we can verify the remains by midnight. I can't, I said. It's a code red. Is someone dying? Worse, I said. V is with her mother. I drove to Wicken Wire at speeds that were strictly illegal, even for a local who knew where the speed traps were. When I burst through the door, the shop felt wrong. The comforting clutter of herbs and crystals was gone. The shelves were organized by color, a sterile rainbow. The smell of sage and swamp magic had been replaced by the aggressive chemical scent of gardenia air freshener. V? In the back, a small voice squeaked. I ran to the storage room that doubled as V's living quarters. V was sitting on the floor, surrounded by piles of silk. Her beautiful, chaotic collection of vintage caftans was heaped in the corner like a funeral pyre waiting for a match. Lenie Bouvier sat on the velvet armchair, holding a glass of V's best wine and a black trash bag. Ah, the mason, Lenie said, looking at my muddy boots with undisguised revulsion. Do try not to track failure onto the rug. What's going on? I asked, stepping between them. An intervention, Lenie said smoothly. I'm helping Veronica curate her wardrobe for the wedding events. We can't have the maid of honor looking like a fortune teller at a carnival. They're my clothes, Mama, V whispered, clutching a tie-dye robe to her chest. She wasn't the confident shop owner I knew. She was 6 years old again. I like them. You like hiding, Lenie corrected, snapping the trash bag. You wear these tents to hide your figure, but we're going to fix that. I've booked you a consultation with a nutritionist and a tailor in Naples tomorrow. I don't want a consultation, V cried. I want to eat a beignet and wear silk. You want to remain single forever? Lenie asked coldly. Darling, I'm on husband number 4. I know what men want. And it isn't tie-dye and patchouli. V crumbled. She buried her face in the robe and sobbed. A jagged, broken sound. That's enough, I said. The hum flared. Protect. Shield. I walked over to Lenie. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just took the trash bag out of her hand. The curation is over, I said. Excuse me? You're done, I said. Get out, Lenie laughed. This is my daughter's house, and I'm her kinetic anchor, I said. Which means when she's too polite to kick you out, I do it. You have no authority here. I have mud on my boots, I said, stepping closer until I loomed over her. And I've spent all day digging up a 100-year-old murder victim in a swamp. I am tired, I am dirty, and I have zero patience for bullies, even well-dressed ones. Lenie stared at me. She looked at the red clay on my pants. She smelled the decay of the marsh on me. You're disgusting, she said. I'm real, I said. Now go back to the B&B. Dirk is probably wondering where you are. Or maybe he's busy trying to pour concrete over his mistakes. You two have a lot in common. Lenie stood up. She smoothed her skirt, composing herself instantly. We'll discuss this tomorrow, Veronica, she said without looking back. When you're less hysterical. She swept out of the room. We heard the front door chime. V didn't stop crying. I sat down on the floor next to her. I pulled the pile of rejected caftans over us like a protective blanket.
"I'm sorry," V sobbed. "I'm weak. I just freeze when she's here."
"You're not weak," I said, leaning my head on her shoulder. "She's a force of nature. You don't fight a hurricane, V. You hunker down." She threw out my favorite purple one. "I'll get it back," I promised. "I'll raid the dumpster."
"Really?"
"I'll dive in head first," I said. "I'm already covered in grave dirt. A little trash won't hurt."
V laughed, a wet, hiccuping sound.
"You abandoned the dig," she realized, wiping her eyes on a silk sleeve. "You left Chase." "The dead can wait," I said. "They're not going anywhere. But you needed backup." "You chose me over the mystery," V said, sounding awed. "You never do that." "I'm trying to be better," I said. "This proactive thing isn't just about catching bad guys. It's about keeping the good ones." We sat there for a long time, under the pile of silk, smelling like lavender and swamp mud. My phone buzzed. A text from Chase. "I found something under the edge of the slab. It's not just concrete. It's gold." I looked at the text. "Gold? In a concrete pour?" "Go," V said, seeing my face. "I'm okay. I have wine. And I need to reorganize my herbs by vibrational frequency just to spite her." "Are you sure?" "Go save the ghost, Merritt," V pushed me. "My mom is gone, but Tom Skerritt is still waiting." I hugged her. "I'll come back," I promised. "I know," V said. "You always do." I ran out of the shop. Gold. Why would a surveyor be buried with gold? Unless it wasn't a surveyor. The hum buzzed. Greed. Wait. Trap. I floored the truck. Chapter 6. The Stakeout. I returned to the surveyor's shack at 2 a.m. The swamp was alive with the sound of things that hunt in the dark. A chorus of trills, splashes, and the occasional scream of a rabbit meeting a bobcat. Chase was sitting on a plastic bucket, staring at the hole we had dug. He held a shovel across his lap like a weapon, his knuckles white in the gloom. "You came back," he said, his voice tight. "I said I would." I slid into the pit beside him, the red clay slick against my boots. "Show me." He pointed to the edge of the concrete slab. I shined my light. Glinting in the muck, embedded in the rough, hand-poured concrete, was a round object. "I scratched it with the trowel," Chase whispered. "It's soft. Gold." I leaned closer, brushing away 80 years of grave dirt. It wasn't a coin. It was a button. A heavy brass button with an eagle motif, worn smooth by time. "It's not gold," I said. "It's brass. Military issue. Probably World War I surplus." "Military?" "Tom Skerritt wasn't just a surveyor," I said, running my thumb over the eagle. "He was a veteran. Army Corps of Engineers, maybe? Why put a button in the concrete?" "He didn't put it there," I said. "It fell off his coat when they dumped him in." I stood up. The air inside the shack dropped 10 degrees in a second. My breath plumed in the beam of the flashlight, white fog against black wood. "He's here," I whispered. "Who?" Chase stood up, gripping the shovel. "Tom?" I closed my eyes. I didn't reach for the hum. I just let it come to me. Usually, ghosts are messy. They scream, they cry, they show you flashes of blood and panic. But Tom was a surveyor. He was a man of lines, angles, and precise measurements. The hum shifted. It wasn't a noise. It was a grid. North, south, elevation +2. I opened my eyes. "Turn off the light," I said. "What?" "Turn it off, Chase. Trust me." Chase hesitated, then clicked off his headlamp. The darkness was absolute. Heavy, suffocating. Look, I whispered. In the corner of the room, a faint bluish light began to coalesce. It didn't form a face, it formed lines, glowing, incandescent vectors cutting through the dark. A spectral tripod appeared near the door. A plumb line dropped from the ceiling. A grid overlay appeared on the floor, mapping the uneven terrain of the shack. What is that? Chase breathed. It's his map, I said. He's showing us the survey. A figure flickered into existence behind the tripod. A man in a fedora, indistinct and hazy, but his posture was sharp. He wasn't looking at us. He was looking through the scope of the transit. He raised a hand. He pointed, not at the slab, but through the rotting wall of the shack, toward the river. He held up 3 fingers. Then the grid snapped. The lines turned red, collapsed. The figure vanished. The light died. We were back in the dark. 3 fingers, Chase whispered. What does it mean? 3 o'clock, I guessed. Or 3 miles? Or 3 bodies, Chase suggested, his voice trembling. Let's hope not. I turned the light back on. The beam felt weak after the spectral show. We need the physical map, I said. The original one. Tom is trying to tell us something about the layout. He didn't die because of who he was. He died because of what he measured. That grid, it turned red. My dad has the survey, Chase said. It's in the site office trailer. The 1924 survey? No, the modern one. But it references the historic landmarks. We need the source, I said. Who ordered the survey in 1924? Who owned this land before the Taggart Group? The county, Chase said. It was seized for back taxes in 23, then sold to a holding company. Fallows Improvement Corp. Fallows Improvement Corp, I snorted. That sounds like a shell company for a mob operation. Or a very optimistic Rotary Club. We need those records, I said. The deed transfer, the surveyor's field notes. The county clerk keeps archives going back to the Civil War. The clerk's office opens at 9, Chase said. And Dirk's bulldozers roll at 8, I reminded him. We don't have time for business hours. Chase looked at me. Are you suggesting we break into the courthouse? I'm suggesting we perform an off-hours records audit, I said. Jasper has a key to the archives. Jasper, the accountant? Jasper, the interim director of historical assets, I corrected. Do you have a flannel shirt? What? If you're going to commit a felony with me, I said, you need to look less like a GQ model and more like a local. Flannel makes you invisible in this town. I have a plaid button-down, Chase offered. It'll have to do, I said. Chase stepped closer. He looked at the hole in the floor. Merritt, he said, if we do this, if we find out my dad knew, if he bought this land knowing it was a crime scene, then he's an accessory to a 100-year-old cover-up, I said. And I'm the son of a criminal. You're the guy holding the shovel, I said. You're the one digging for the truth when everyone else is trying to bury it. That's a choice, Chase. A good one. He looked at me. In the dim light, the mud on his face looked like war paint. Let's go steal some records, he said. Chapter 7. The records. The Fallows County Courthouse was a fortress of red brick and bureaucracy. By day, it was filled with people fighting speeding tickets and filing marriage licenses. By night, it was a tomb that smelled of floor wax and old injustices. This is a felony, Jasper whispered as he unlocked the side door with a key he definitely wasn't supposed to still have. I want to be clear. This is breaking and entering. It's just entering, I corrected, slipping inside. You have a key. I have a key for the archive, Jasper hissed, clutching his messenger bag. Not the deed room. They are separate departments with separate jurisdictional codes. They share a hallway, I said. Chase, you're looking out. Chase stood by the door. He was wearing the flannel shirt I suggested, but he still looked like an Abercrombie model who had gotten lost on a rugged camping trip. "If anyone comes," I instructed, "start talking about drainage coefficients loud enough to bore them into a coma." "I can do that," Chase nodded seriously. Jasper and I crept down the marble hallway. The security lights buzzed overhead, casting long, jittery shadows. "Deed room," Jasper pointed to a frosted glass door. Locked, obviously. I knelt down. Tumbler lock, standard issue. I've seen harder locks on a diary. I pulled out my lock picks, a delicate set of tension wrenches I kept in my boot. Click, click, clunk. The door swung open. "You look surprisingly comfortable doing that," Jasper noted with disapproval. "I fix things," I said. "Locks are just metal puzzles." We slipped inside. The room was lined with massive, leather-bound ledgers that reached the ceiling. It felt heavy in here. Millions of acres of land, disputes, and boundaries trapped in paper. 1924, I said. Volume F through G. We scanned the shelves. The dust motes danced in the beam of Jasper's flashlight. "Here." Jasper pulled down a heavy volume. It landed on the reading table with a solid thud. He opened it to the index. "Fallows Improvement Corp.," he muttered, running a finger down the column. "Filed August 12th, 1924. He flipped to the page number. "That's weird," Jasper said. "What?" "Page 402 is missing." I looked. The page hadn't been torn out. It had been excised, cut cleanly, surgically, with a razor blade. A thin strip of paper remained near the binding. "Check the next entry," I said. "Who sold the land?" "The entry before is Taggart, Jebediah." I froze. "Taggart?" I asked. "As in Dirk's family?" "Chase!" I called out in a whisper shout. Chase abandoned his post and ran over. "This name," I pointed to the ledger. "Jebediah Taggart. Relation?" Chase looked at the book. His face went pale. "That's my great-grandfather," he whispered. "He was a land speculator in the 20s. Family legend says he lost everything in the crash of 1929. "He didn't lose everything," I said. "He sold the sinking grounds to himself. Fallows Improvement Corp. It was a shell company." "Why?" "To hide the survey," I realized. "To hide Tom Skerritt. Jebediah hired Tom to survey the land. Tom found something. The sinkhole, the instability, maybe both. Jebediah killed him, buried him in the foundation of the shack, and then transferred the title to a shell company to bury the paper trail. And now my dad bought it back," Chase said, staring at the ledger. "Did he know?" "He's obsessed with the legacy," I said. "Maybe he's reclaiming the family land." "Or reclaiming the bodies," Jasper shuddered. "Wait." Chase flipped the page back. "Look at the witness signature on the previous transfer." I squinted at the faded ink. "Witness, L. Bouvier." "Bouvier?" I asked. "Like Lenie, my grandmother?" Chase asked. "No, that's French. It's a common name in Louisiana," Jasper said. "Like Smith." "Lenie is from New Orleans," I said slowly. "Merritt, do you think—" "No," I said. "That's crazy. Lenie is marrying your dad now. If their families were connected in 1924, that's too coincidental." "Or it's a merger," Chase said. "A merger of secrets." "We need the missing page," I said. "The page that lists the actual survey coordinates. If Tom found something, he would have noted it there. The anomaly." "It's gone," Jasper said. "Razor blade. Probably done 80 years ago." "Or yesterday," I said. "Look at the paper edge. It's bright white. The rest of the page is yellowed with age. This cut is fresh." "Someone beat us here," Chase realized. "Your dad," I said. "No," Chase said. "My dad hires people. He doesn't use razor blades. He uses lawyers.
Then who?
Click. The handle of the deed room door turned. We froze.
Security,
Jasper squeaked. Hide, I hissed. We ducked behind the long oak reading table. The door opened. A beam of light swept the room. It wasn't a security guard. The footsteps were light, precise. Leather soles on marble. The figure walked straight to the shelf we had just used. They saw the gap where the ledger was lying on the table. Sloppy, a voice whispered. A male voice. Smooth, southern, and familiar. The figure reached into their pocket. They pulled out a thumb drive. They walked to the archive computer on the corner desk. Downloading backup, the voice muttered. It's the backup, Jasper whispered. Digital records. The screen glowed blue. It illuminated the man's face. It wasn't Dirk Taggart. It wasn't Silas Blackwood. It was the mayor. Mayor Higgins. Higgins? I mouthed. The mayor tapped the keyboard. Delete, delete, delete. He's scrubbing the digital file, I realized. Why? Because the town approved the sale, Chase whispered. If the land was stolen property, the town is liable for millions in restitution. The mayor finished. He pulled the drive. He wiped the keyboard with a handkerchief to remove fingerprints. He turned to leave, and then his phone rang. The ringtone was unmistakable. Dixie. He answered it immediately, his posture slumping into deference. It's done, Higgins said into the phone. The physical page is gone. The digital record is wiped. There is no proof that Jebediah Taggart ever owned that swamp. Dirk is safe. He paused, listening to the voice on the other end. Yes, Lennie, he said, sounding like a scolded schoolboy. I'll see you at the rehearsal dinner. Don't worry. The past is buried. He hung up and walked out. We sat in the dark for a long minute. Lennie, I whispered. She's not just a bride. She's the architect. She called the mayor, Jasper said. She's pulling the strings. Chase looked devastated. My future stepmother is burying my family history. She's protecting the merger, I said. Fallows Landing isn't just a development. It's a laundering operation. They're washing the blood out of the dirt. We have to stop the wedding, Chase said. First, I said, standing up, we have to find the one thing they couldn't delete. What? The body, I said. Tom. They can cut paper, but they haven't cut the concrete yet. I looked at the clock on the wall. 4 a.m. The bulldozers arrive in 4 hours, I said. We need to lift that slab. We don't have a crane, Chase said. No, I grinned. But I have a jackhammer, and I know exactly where the crack is. Chapter 8. The Confrontation. Sunlight in the sinking grounds is deceptive. It looks pretty. Golden light filtering through Spanish moss, mist rising off the black water. But it lies. It hides the rust on the abandoned trucks. It hides the scars on the land. And it highlights the desperate look in a developer's eyes. We arrived at the site at 6 a.m. The bulldozers were already idling, their diesel engines rumbling like hungry stomachs. But they weren't working. They were parked in a circle, like wagons protecting a camp against an unseen enemy. In the center of the circle stood Dirk Taggart and Lenie Bouvier. They were arguing. I told you to wait, Lenie was hissing, her voice cutting over the mechanical drone. She wore a pristine white hard hat over a silk Hermes scarf, looking less like a visitor and more like she was inspecting a hostile takeover. We can't wait, Dirk yelled back, pacing in the mud. The NDA is signed. We demo the shack, we fill the hole, we bury the problem. You're sloppy, Dirk, Lenie snapped. You don't just bury a problem. You sanitize it. Chase, Jasper, and I stepped out of the tree line. Good morning, I announced, pitching my voice to Carrie. Is this a private demolition, or can anyone join? Dirk spun around. You have 48 hours for an assessment. It's been 12. Plans change, I said. We found something interesting in the archives. References, Jasper added, holding up a file folder. It was empty, but he held it with the gravitas of a Supreme Court justice. Deed transfers, 1924. Dirk's face twitched. I don't know what you're talking about, Jebediah Taggart, Chase said, stepping past me. Your grandfather, Dad. He owned this land. He incorporated Fallows' improvement to hide it. Dirk stared at his son. A vein throbbed in his temple, vivid against his tan. It's just land, Chase, Dirk said. Families buy and sell land all the time. And the witness? I asked, looking at Lenie. Lenie Bouvier? A relative, Lenie? Lenie didn't flinch. She adjusted her sunglasses, hiding her eyes. My great-uncle, she said smoothly. Lucien Bouvier. He was a notary in Fort Myers. He signed thousands of documents. Small world, I said. That your great-uncle signed the deed that hid a murder on the land your fiancé is now developing? Murder? Dirk laughed. You're still on the ghost story? I'm on the missing page, I said. The one Mayor Higgins deleted last night. We saw him, Dirk. We know you scrubbed the digital record. You have no proof, Lenie said. Her voice was calm, dangerous. And without proof, you are just slandering a reputable businessman and the mayor of this town. We have the shack. I pointed to the rotting wooden box. And what's under it? There is nothing under it, Dirk roared. It's dirt. Then let us dig, Chase challenged. No. Dirk signaled the bulldozer operator. Demo it. Now. The operator revved the engine. The massive blade lifted. Stop! Chase ran toward the shack. Chase, get back! Dirk yelled, but Chase didn't stop. He ran inside the shack. He's in the kill zone, I screamed. The operator can't see him. The bulldozer lurched forward, tracks grinding the mud. The blade blocked the driver's view of the door. Stop the damn machine! I sprinted. I didn't run for the shack. I ran for the dozer. I jumped on the moving track, grabbing the roll cage. The vibration rattled my teeth. Cut it! I yelled at the operator, slamming my hand against the cab glass. The guy looked at me, terrified. He killed the engine. Silence fell over the site, heavy and sudden. You're crazy, Dirk ran over. Get off my equipment. Your son is in that building, I yelled down at him, my heart hammering against my ribs. You almost crushed him. Dirk looked at the shack. He looked shaken, the color draining from his face. Lenie walked over. She looked at the stalled dozer. She looked at me, perched on the tracks. Dramatic, she noted. Effective, I countered, jumping down. Chase walked out of the shack. He was holding something, a chunk of concrete, jagged and gray. He walked up to his father. Look at it, Chase said. He held out the concrete. Embedded in the matrix was a bone, a distinct white phalanx, a human finger bone. Dirk stared at it. He gagged. It's real, Dirk whispered. Oh, God, it's real. You knew, Chase said. You knew there was a body. I suspected, Dirk admitted, sinking to his knees in the mud, ruining his suit. My father, he told stories about the surveyor problem, but I thought it was I thought they moved him. They poured him, I said. They made him part of the foundation. Lenie looked at the bone. She didn't look horrified. She looked annoyed. Well, Lenie sighed. That complicates the reception. Complicates it? I stared at her. It's a crime scene, Lenie. A homicide. It's 100 years old, Lenie dismissed. Statute of limitations, darling. And frankly, who cares about a surveyor? The man has been dead for a century. Fallows Landing will employ hundreds of living people. You want to cover it up, I realized. You knew too. I know how the world works, Lenie said. You build on the ruins. That's simply history. She turned to Dirk. "Get up," she ordered. "Stop crying in the mud. It's unbecoming." Dirk stood up, wiping his face. He looked at Lenie like a puppy looking for a command or a slap. "What do we do?" Dirk asked. "We call the coroner," Lenie said. "We report the find. We delay the demo for 24 hours. Let them exhume the old bones. Then we pour the foundation." "But the gala goes on," Lenie said firmly. "We spin it. Developers discover historic artifact. We make it a selling point, a connection to the past. People love a mystery, provided it's solved." "You are monstrous," Jasper noted, awestruck. "I am practical," Lenie said. "Chase, put the bone back. Merritt, you have your 24 hours. Dig him up, get him out, and then get off my sight." She turned and walked to the Escalade. Dirk followed her, looking broken. Chase stood there, holding the bone. "She won," Chase whispered. "She turned a murder into a marketing op." "She thinks she won," I said. "But she forgot one thing." "What?" "The hum," I said. "Tom isn't just a bone, he's a surveyor. And he didn't just measure the land. He measured the sinkhole." I looked at the concrete slab visible through the open door of the shack. "If we dig him up," I said, "we also dig up the water. And without the slab to cap it," I grinned, "the sinkhole opens, and Fallows Landing falls into the swamp before they pour a single footer." "You want to trigger the collapse?" Chase asked. "Deliberately?" "It's not sabotage," I said. "It's physics. We're just removing the cork." Chase looked at the bone. He looked at his father's retreating figure. "Let's get the jackhammer," Chase said. Chapter 9. The Exhumation. There is no dignified way to use a jackhammer. It is 90 pounds of vibrating rage that wants to dislocate your shoulders and liquefy your teeth. It is the architectural equivalent of a temper tantrum. "Let me do it," Chase offered, shouting over the roar of the compressor. "I got it," I shouted back, gripping the rubber handles until my knuckles turned white. "It's all about the angle." I drove the chisel tip into the concrete slab. Rat-tat-tat-tat-tat. Dust exploded. Chips of gray stone flew like shrapnel, pinging off our safety glasses. The shack shook. The hum buzzed in harmony with the impact, a dissonant, grinding noise that rattled in my chest. Break. Release. Open. We worked in shifts. Me, Chase, and Jasper, who refused to touch the jackhammer, but was excellent at sweeping debris with a tiny, fastidious broom he had found in his car trunk. By noon, the slab was cracked into manageable, pizza-sized chunks. "Okay," I said, wiping grit from my face. "Lever bars." We jammed the steel bars into the cracks and pried. The concrete groaned, then lifted. It was heavy, wet work. Beneath the slab, the dirt wasn't red clay. It was dark, stained with organic decay and time. "Careful now," I warned. "We're on top of him." We switched to trowels and brushes. Tom Scarrett emerged slowly from the earth. He was a skeleton now, of course. The denim of his work pants had rotted to threads, leaving only the copper rivets. His leather boots were surprisingly intact. And there was the hole in his skull. "Bullet wound," Chase whispered, pointing to the fracture on the temporal bone. "Execution style." "Jebediah didn't take chances," I said somberly. We worked in silence, exposing the rest of the remains. Beside the body, we found the artifacts of a life interrupted in 1924. A rusted compass. A pocket watch, stopped forever at 3:12. And a metal tube. "The map case," I said, reaching for the tube. It was brass, sealed with wax that had hardened to stone. "Is the map inside?" Jasper asked, leaning over my shoulder. I unscrewed the cap. It was stiff, protesting with a screech of metal on metal, but it turned. I pulled out a roll of vellum. It was brittle, yellowed, but legible. "It's the original survey," I said, unrolling it carefully on a flat piece of concrete. We huddled around the map. It showed the sinking grounds, but it was covered in red ink, X marks, arrows, and a large shaded area labeled void. "He found it." Chase traced the red line with a trembling finger. "The main cavern. It runs—" "Oh my God." "Where?" "It runs directly under the town square," Chase said. "Under the statue of General Fallows, and under the proposed hotel," I added. "If you build on this," Chase tapped the map, "you don't just sink the hotel, you destabilize the entire historic district. The vibration of the pilings would trigger a liquefaction event. The whole town would slide into the river," Jasper realized, his eyes wide. "Like a mudslide." "That's why Jebediah killed him," I said. "Tom wasn't just stopping a land deal. He was saving the town." As we spoke, the ground beneath our feet shifted. Not a vibration, a drop. The dirt floor of the shack sank 3 inches in a single heartbeat. "Uh-oh," Jasper said. "The slab," I realized. It was acting as a tension cap. It was holding the pressure equilibrium. "And we just removed it," Chase said. Rumble. Deep in the earth, something snapped. A sound like a tree branch breaking, amplified 1,000 times. "Out!" I yelled. "Everyone out, now!" We scrambled out of the shack, stumbling over the threshold. We ran 10 yards into the tall grass, then turned back. The surveyor's shack groaned. The brick piers buckled inward. The roofline sagged in the middle like a wet cardboard box. And then, with a wet, slurping sound that I will never forget, the entire building was swallowed. It didn't fall over. It dropped straight down. 1 second it was there, the next it was gone, replaced by a bubbling pool of black, churning mud. "The sinkhole," Chase whispered. "It's open." "And it's hungry," I added. The mud churned. Timbers popped back to the surface. And then, the concrete chunks we had removed. The water table was rising. "Tom is free," I said. "But so is the water." "My dad," Chase said, turning to look at the main construction site 100 yards away. The garage slab. It connects to the same aquifer. We watched. The massive concrete pad of the new garage, which had been pristine yesterday, cracked. A fissure zigzagged across the gray surface like lightning, accompanied by a sound like a gunshot. "It's spreading," I said. "The pressure release is traveling." "We have to stop the gala," Jasper said. "They're setting up the tent on the square tonight. If the void runs under the square," "The vibration of the band," Chase said, doing the mental math. "The dancing, the weight of 300 people. It could trigger the main collapse," I finished. We looked at each other, covered in grave dust, sweat, and the realization of impending doom. "We have the map," I said, holding up the vellum tube. "We have the proof. We need to show the mayor." "The mayor is in on it," Jasper reminded me. "He deleted the files." "Then we show the town," I said. "Tonight, at the gala." "We crash the party?" Chase asked. "I'm technically fired, and you're banned." "We don't just crash it," I said, grinning through the grime. "We ruin it. We bring the mud to the ballroom." Chapter 10. The Architect. We retreated to wick and wire to lick our wounds, scrape the mud off our soles, and study the map. V locked the front door, flipped the sign to closed for spiritual cleansing, and pulled the blinds. "You smell," V announced, wrinkling her nose as she surveyed us. "Like the bottom of a river that died." "We brought a guest," I said, ignoring the critique and placing the brass map tube on the counter. Chase unrolled the vellum map. In the warm, beeswax-scented light of the shop, the red ink looked painfully bright, like fresh blood on old skin.
"This is incredible,"
Jasper whispered, leaning over the counter and adjusting his glasses. Tom Skerritt mapped the entire subterranean hydrology of Fallows. "Look at these flow rates."
"He predicted the displacement,"
I said. "See here? He noted the compression points. He knew that filling the marsh would force water back into the crypts. And here," Chase pointed to the center of the square, "the void. He labeled it the throat." "The throat?" Vi asked, pausing in her search for air freshener. "Because it swallows," I said. "It's a vertical shaft in the limestone, probably an ancient sinkhole that was capped over by sediment centuries ago. If you breach the cap, the whole square drops 50 feet. And my dad is building a hotel on the lip of it," Chase said. He ran a hand through his stiff, mud-caked hair. "He's putting a 10-story load on a crust of dirt." He looked defeated. "I have to tell him," Chase said. "If I show him this, he has to stop. He's a businessman, but he's not a murderer." "He buried a bone this morning, Chase," I reminded him gently. He knows about the past crime," Chase argued. "He doesn't know about the future collapse. He thinks it's just a settlement issue. He thinks he can throw concrete at it." "He doesn't want to know," I said. "And Lenie certainly doesn't. If you walk in there with this map, they'll destroy it, just like they destroyed the ledger page." "So what do we do?" Chase asked. "I can't just let people die." "We make it public," Jasper said. "We scan it, we upload it to the town server, we send it to the Gazette. The Gazette prints what the mayor tells them to print," Vi said. "We need a bigger stage." "The gala," I said. Everyone looked at me. "Tonight," I said. "Everyone who matters will be there. The town council, the wealthy investors, the press from Atlanta. If we project this map onto the big screen during Dirk's presentation, if we show them the throat, they can't ignore it." "They'll throw us out," Chase said. "I'm fired. You're banned. We can't even get past the velvet rope." Vi smiled, a slow, dangerous smile that usually preceded a sale of very expensive candles. "Actually," Vi said, "I'm the maid of honor, and I have a +1. "That gets one of us in," I said. "And," Vi continued, walking to the rack of vintage clothes that she called the archive, "I hired the catering crew. My friend Rico is running the bar. He owes me a favor for exercising his Honda Civic." "So we're going undercover as waiters?" Jasper asked, looking horrified. "I do not have the temperament for service." "No," Vi held up a black tuxedo jacket. "You're going as the jazz band's trombone player. He has the flu. Or he will, once I text him." "I don't play the trombone," Jasper protested. "You just have to hold it and look moody," Vi said. "It's jazz. No one listens to the trombone anyway." "And Merritt?" Vi turned to me. She pulled out a dress. Not a caftan. A sleek, black 1940s evening gown with long sleeves, a high neck, and a slit that went all the way to next Tuesday. "You're going as my +1, Vi said. "But we need to clean you up. Currently, you look like a potato that was rolled in glitter and dumped in a swamp." "What about Chase?" I asked. Chase looked at the map. He looked at his hands, still stained with the red clay of the digging site. "I'm the architect," he said quietly. "I designed the stage. I have a key to the AV booth. If you get me inside, I can swap the presentation file." "It's risky," I said. "If Dirk catches you..." "He's my father," Chase said. "I have to be the one to stop him." "Okay," I said. "Operation Mudslide is a go." I looked at the clock. "We have 4 hours to turn into high society infiltrators. Vi, work your magic." Vi clapped her hands. "Finally!" A makeover montage. 3 hours later, I didn't recognize the woman in the mirror. The mud was scrubbed off. It took 3 showers. My hair was pinned up in a severe retro wave. The black dress fit like armor, tight, structural, and intimidating. "You clean up well, Vance." Chase's voice came from the doorway. I turned around. Chase was wearing his own tuxedo, which he had retrieved from his car. He looked devastating. The exhaustion under his eyes just made him look brooding. He looked like a movie star who played architects in Oscar bait films. "Don't get used to it," I said, adjusting the hidden holster on my thigh. It held a mini flashlight and my lockpick set, not a gun. "I feel naked without my boots." "You look dangerous," Chase said softly. The air in the shop shifted. The static returned, electric and sharp. We held eye contact for a second too long. "Okay, lovebirds," V interrupted, sweeping into the room in a dress that was made entirely of shimmering gold scales. She looked like a disco mermaid. "Let's go ruin a wedding." We piled into V's van. My truck was too conspicuous, and Jasper refused to let us muddy his sedan. As we drove toward the Fallows town square, I looked out the window. The sun was setting, painting the sky in bruises of purple and red, and the hum. The hum was screaming now. Slip, slide, fall. The sinking grounds were moving. The vibration of the massive generator trucks in the square was already shaking the unstable earth. We were racing the collapse. Chapter 11. The Gala. The Fallows town square had been transformed from a quaint public park into a scene from The Great Gatsby. If Gatsby had been a real estate developer with a humidity problem. White tints peaked like meringue against the darkening sky. Fairy lights were strung between the live oaks, creating a ceiling of artificial stars. A jazz band played something soft, expensive, and inoffensive near the gazebo. It was beautiful. It was garish, and it was sitting on top of a geological time bomb. "Smile," V whispered, clutching my arm. "You look like you're calculating the load-bearing capacity of the tablecloths." "I am," I muttered through my frozen grin. "They're using heavy linen, and look at the centerpieces, lead crystal vases filled with river stones. That's adding unnecessary dead load." We walked the red carpet. V was radiant in emerald silk that shimmered like a beetle's wing. I was trying not to trip in my heels and praying my hidden holster didn't print through the silk of my rented gown. "Name?" the clipboard girl asked, looking bored. "Veronica Bouvier," V said. "Maid of honor and guest." The girl checked the list. "Go right in. Your mother is asking for you. Something about emergency steaming." "Joy." V squeezed my hand. "Good luck, Agent Vance." She swept off toward the VIP tent, leaving a trail of perfume and determination. I scanned the crowd. I saw Jasper in the bandstand. He was holding a trombone like it was a live cobra. He caught my eye and gave a tiny, panicked nod. He was wearing sunglasses at night, which somehow made him look less cool and more like a blind piano tuner. I saw Dirk Taggart holding court near the champagne tower. He was laughing, shaking hands, looking every inch the conquering hero. And I saw the AV booth, a small tent raised on a platform near the back, guarded by a man with a neck thicker than my waist. "Target acquired," I whispered to no one. I moved through the crowd, grabbing a glass of champagne to blend in. "Merritt?" I froze. Detective Pasco was standing by the shrimp cocktail tower. He was wearing his court appearance suit, which was ill-fitting and gray. "Ellis," I smiled. "You look clean, and you look..." He stared at me, blinking. "Like trouble wrapped in silk." "I'm just a guest." "You're banned from the site," Pasco said, lowering his voice. Dirk Taggart filed a restraining order this afternoon. Said you threatened to sabotage his equipment with a sledgehammer.
He's projecting, I said. And technically, this is public property. I have a permit to be fabulous.
Pasco sighed. Merritt, don't make a scene. The mayor is here. The press from Atlanta is here. If you start hitting things with a hammer, I have to arrest you. And I don't want to arrest you in that dress.
I left my hammer at home, I promised.
I'm strictly observing. Where's Chase? Pasco asked, scanning the room. Dirk reported him missing too. Said you kidnapped him.
Chase is around, I said vaguely.
Enjoy the shrimp, Ellis. I hear they're fresh from the marsh. I slipped away before he could ask more questions, specifically asking about the bulge on my thigh that was definitely a lockpick set.
I reached the AV booth. The burly security guard blocked the stairs.
Staff only, he grunted.
I'm with the band, I lied.
The trombone player needs his slide oil. It's an emergency. Friction. Nice try. The guard crossed his arms. No credentials, no access. I looked around. I needed a distraction. I looked at the bandstand. Jasper was watching me. I tapped my nose. Signal. Jasper took a deep breath. He raised the trombone to his lips. He closed his eyes, and he blew. It wasn't a note. It was the sound of a dying elephant trying to sneeze. A blast of discordant, flatulent brass that cut through the smooth jazz like a chainsaw. B-W-A-A-A-A-A-A-P dash honk. The crowd silenced. The lead singer glared. The drummer missed a beat. Sorry, Jasper yelled, waving the slide. Valve stuck. Humidity. My bad. The guard looked at the stage, wincing. I didn't wait. I ducked under the platform skirting while he was distracted by the musical crime. It was dark and dusty underneath. Cables snaked everywhere. I army crawled toward the back, where the canvas was loose, ruining my manicure. I popped up inside the booth. Chase was already there. He was crouching behind the server rack like a nervous IT gargoyle. The actual AV guy was busy looking out the window at the commotion on stage. You made it, Chase whispered. He smelled of expensive cologne and terror. Jasper is a hero, I said, and tone deaf. Did you swap the file? I'm trying, Chase typed furiously on a laptop he had jacked into the main board. But the system is password protected. My dad changed the admin code. Try money, I suggested. I tried Lenie. I tried success. Try legacy, I said. He's obsessed with it. Chase typed Legacy. Access denied. Damn it, Chase hissed. We have 5 minutes before the presentation starts. Outside, the music stopped. Ladies and gentlemen, Dirk's voice boomed over the speakers. The bass vibrated the floorboards under my heels. Welcome to the future of Fallows. Applause. Enthusiastic, expensive applause. I need the password, Chase said, or I can't upload the map. I looked at the console. It was a Taggart Group laptop. Think like your father, I said. What matters to him? Not legacy, not money. Winning? Chase guessed. No, I said. Focus. When we were at the site, he said he needed this deal, or the bank pulls the loan. Bankruptcy, Chase said. Fear. He typed something. Access granted. What was it? I asked. 1929, Chase said grimly. The year his grandfather lost it all. He's terrified of history repeating. He uploaded the file. Tom_scarrett_map_final.jpg. It's queued, Chase said. Slide 4, right after the economic impact chart. Good, I said. Now we wait and hope the ground holds. Chase added. We peeked through the mesh window of the tent. Dirk was on stage. Lenie was beside him, looking like a queen who had just ordered an execution. Tonight, Dirk said, we break ground on Fallows Landing, a project that will redefine luxury. And redefine gravity, I muttered. Dirk clicked the remote. Slide 1, the marina. Beautiful boats, blue water, applause. Slide 2, the hotel. Glass, steel, and lies. More applause. Slide 3, economic impact. A bar chart going up, up, up. Polite clapping. And now, Dirk said, let me show you the foundation of our success. He clicked for slide 4. The screen flickered, and then the map appeared. The 1924 survey. The red ink. The big black void labeled the throat. And the handwritten note, unstable, void. Do not build. The crowd went silent. What is that? Someone whispered. Dirk froze. He looked at the screen. He clicked the remote again. Nothing happened. Technical difficulties. Dirk laughed nervously. One moment. Wrong file. It's not a difficulty. Chase stepped out of the booth. He walked onto the edge of the platform, the spotlight catching him. It's the truth, Chase yelled. Chase? Dirk squinted against the lights. Get down from there. That's the original survey, Dad. Chase pointed to the screen. August 1924. Tom Skerritt mapped the sinkhole. You're standing on top of a void. Security! Lenie barked into a microphone. Remove him! 2 guards started toward Chase. He's right. I stepped out next to Chase. I'm Merritt Vance. I'm a mason. And I'm telling you, the ground is moving. She's the crazy one, Dirk yelled, pointing. She's sabotaging the event. Listen to the ground, I shouted at the crowd. Stop the music. Listen. The crowd hesitated. The band stopped. Even the crickets seemed to hold their breath. Silence. And in the silence, we heard it. Gurgle. A low, wet sound. Like a giant bathtub draining. Glug, glug, glug. That's the plumbing, Dirk dismissed, though his voice wavered. Crack. A granite paver stone in the center of the square popped up. It flew 3 feet into the air and landed with a clatter. People screamed. It's starting, I yelled. Get off the pavers! Move to the grass! Stay calm, Dirk commanded. It's just a settling issue. And then the bronze statue of General Fallows moved. It didn't fall. It dropped. The plinth sank 2 feet into the earth. The general looked surprisingly surprised. Run! Someone screamed. The panic started. Champagne glasses shattered. Chairs were overturned. People in expensive shoes stampeded toward the exits. Lenie! Dirk grabbed her arm. We have to go. My investors! Lenie shrieked, watching the terrifying scene. My gala! The ground shook again. Rumble. A fissure opened up right in front of the stage. It wasn't a crack. It was a mouth. And it was widening. The throat, Chase whispered. It's opening. Chapter 12. The Collapse. The sound of a town square eating itself is not a sound you expect to hear in civilized society. It was a wet, grinding, chewing noise, like a giant garbage disposal digesting a bag of marbles. The center of the square, where the fountain had bubbled peacefully 5 minutes ago, was gone. In its place was a black, churning hole about 30 feet wide. Water was geysering up from the depths. Brown, foamy, angry water that smelled of a century of secrets. Get back, I yelled, tackling a woman in pearls who was staring into the abyss like a deer in headlights. I shoved her toward the sidewalk. Move! Merritt! Jasper's voice broke through the screaming. I looked up. The bandstand was tilting. The sinkhole was undercutting the foundation of the gazebo. "Jump!" I screamed. Jasper didn't hesitate. He threw the trombone at the hole, a noble sacrifice to the gods of jazz, and leaped. He landed in the azalea bushes, safe, but scratching his tuxedo. But on the main stage, Dirk and Lenie were trapped. The fissure had cut them off. The stage was now an island, surrounded by widening cracks and rising mud. "Dirk!" Lenie screamed, clutching his arm. "Do something! Fix it!" Dirk looked at the gap. It was 6 feet wide and growing. Below it, the water swirled, dark and hungry. "Jump!" Dirk yelled. "I can't." "You're pathetic," Lenie hissed. She kicked off her heels. She bunched her silk dress, and she leaped. She cleared the gap with the grace of a jungle cat escaping a flood. She landed on the solid pavers, rolled perfectly, and stood up. "I'm out!" Lenie yelled, running for the Escalade parked on the curb. She didn't look back. She didn't wait. She just ran. But Dirk was paralyzed. He stared at the hole. He stared at the map on the screen behind him, which was now tilting at a 45-degree angle. "Dad!" Chase ran toward the edge. "Don't go out there!" I grabbed Chase's tuxedo jacket, digging my heels in. "The pavers are liquefying!" "He's stuck!" The stage gave a sickening lurch. The scaffolding buckled. "Help!" Dirk screamed. The confident developer was gone. The master of the universe was just a terrified man in a wetsuit, clinging to a dying structure. "We need a bridge," I said, scanning the chaos. I saw the AV platform. It was built on steel trusses, sitting precariously near the edge. "Chase," I said. "The truss. If we tip the AV tower, it will fall across the gap." "It weighs a ton." "It's on a fulcrum," I said, pointing to the sunken leg. "Kick out the back support and gravity does the rest." "Ready?" Chase asked. "On 3. 1, 2, 3. We kicked the steel support with everything we had. The tower groaned. Then it tipped. Crash. It fell across the fissure, the steel frame slamming onto the stage with a bone-jarring impact. It wasn't pretty, and it probably destroyed $50,000 of audio equipment. But it was a bridge. "Run, Dirk!" Chase yelled. "Use the truss!" Dirk looked at the steel beam. He looked at the water rising below him. He crawled onto the truss. He shimmied, hand over hand, his expensive Italian loafers slipping on the wet steel. The stage behind him groaned. "Faster!" I yelled. "It's going!" Dirk scrambled. He reached the edge. Chase grabbed his hand and hauled him onto solid ground, just as, foom, the stage vanished. It didn't fall slowly. It dropped. 1 second it was there, the next it was gone, swallowed by the mud. There was a splash, a hiss of shorting electricity, and then darkness. We lay on the pavers, panting. Dirk was shaking, clinging to Chase like a drowning man. "I lost it," Dirk whispered, watching the bubbles rise from the deep. "I lost everything." "You're alive," Chase said. "You're welcome." I stood up, my legs trembling. The sinkhole seemed to have stopped growing. It had eaten the center of the square, the statue, the fountain, the stage, but the buildings on the perimeter were holding. The library was safe. O'Connell's pub was safe. "Is it over?" Jasper asked, crawling out of the hedge with a rhododendron leaf stuck in his hair. I closed my eyes. I reached out for the hum. The pressure was gone. The throat had cleared. The blockage was removed. Open. Flow. Done. "The pressure is equalized," I said. "The collapse has stabilized." Then I heard sirens. Mayor Higgins ran up to us. His suit was disheveled, his tie askew. "What happened?" Higgins screamed. "My square! My statue! Where is the general? General Fallows has retired, I said. Permanently. I pointed to the giant screen, which was now half submerged in the mud hole, but miraculously still flickering. The map was still visible. The 1924 survey, I said. Creating a hostile work environment for your re-election campaign. Higgins turned pale. He looked at the map. He looked at the crowd of voters who were filming the hole. And him. Detective Pasco stepped up behind the mayor. He looked at the map. He looked at the hole. He looked at Dirk. Is that true? Pasco asked. Did you know about the void? Dirk looked at the hole where his legacy used to be. He looked at Chase. Dirk hesitated. Chase stared at his father. Choice. I didn't tell him. Chase lied. What? I looked at Chase. I'm the engineer of record, Chase said loudly, addressing Pasco. I signed the site assessment. My father, he just funded it. He didn't know about the survey. Dirk looked at his son, eyes wide. Chase? It was my negligence, Chase said to Pasco, his voice steady. I missed the void. It was an oversight. That's a lie, I hissed, grabbing Chase's arm. He knew. He buried the bone. Don't do this. What bone? Pasco asked, eyebrows raised. Nothing, Chase said. Just bad engineering, detective. Professional malpractice. Why are you doing this? I whispered to Chase. He's the villain. He's my dad, Chase whispered back. And if he goes to jail, the company dissolves. The workers lose their pensions. If I take the hit, I lose my license. But the company survives to fix this mess. I stared at him. It was a stupid, noble, incredibly Taggart thing to do. Pasco looked between them. He suspected, but he couldn't prove it. Not without the bone. We'll need statements, Pasco said. Down at the station. Everyone. Wait, I said. Where's Lenie? We looked around. The Escalade was gone. She ran, V said, walking up to us. She was holding her shoes in one hand and a bottle of champagne in the other. She bailed. Again. She left Dirk? I asked. She left the liability, V corrected. Mom doesn't do disasters. V looked at the hole in the ground. Well, she said, popping the cork on the champagne. At least the wedding is off. Silver lining, Jasper agreed, accepting a swig from the bottle. I looked at the sinkhole. The water was calming down. It was just a dark, muddy pond now in the center of town. The ghost? Chase asked me quietly. Tom? I listened. The frantic buzzing was gone. The cold was gone. He's out, I said. The water carried him to the river. He's free. I looked at Chase. You're not free, though, I said. You just confessed to negligence. I can rebuild my reputation, Chase said. Disasters happen. Not like this, I said. This wasn't a disaster, Chase. It was a reckoning. The paramedics arrived to check Dirk for shock. I walked away from the chaos. I sat on the curb, oblivious to the mud on my vintage dress. Act 3 wasn't just a physical collapse. It was a moral one. Chase had saved his father, but at what cost? And Lenie? Lenie had gotten away, or had she? The hum buzzed one last time. A sharp, stinging note. Not done. I looked at the mud on my dress. I realized something. Lenie didn't just run. She ran to the car. And she had been carrying her purse. Not a clutch. Her big purse. Jasper, I called out. Yes. Get the truck, I said. We have one more stop. The police station? No, I said. We need to catch a hurricane. Lenie? She's heading for the airport, I said. And she's carrying Taggart assets. How do you know? Because a Taggart never leaves money on the table, I said. She fleeced him, Jasper. before the ground even opened. Chapter 13. The Discovery. By midnight, the Fallows town square looked less like a venue and more like a war zone referenced in a FEMA report. Police tape fluttered in the breeze. Portable spotlights cut through the mist, illuminating the carnage of overturned chairs, shattered crystal, and ruined shoes. The sinkhole itself was a black, silent eye in the center of the devastation, filled with muddy water and the remains of the bandstand. I stood at the police barricade, drinking coffee that tasted like battery acid and regret. "It looks bad," Jasper said, standing beside me. He was still in his tuxedo, though he had lost the bow tie hours ago and looked like a waiter who had survived the Titanic. "Structure is compromised for 3 blocks, I said, scanning the cracks in the pavement. "The library has a fissure in the foundation. O'Connell's has a flooded basement. But the ground has stopped moving. The pressure is equalized." "And Chase? Still in with Pasco?" I nodded toward the mobile command unit, a converted RV parked on the sidewalk. "He's sticking to his story. Negligence. He's taking the fall for everything. He's protecting a man who would have let him die," Jasper said, shaking his head. "Family is weird, and dysfunctional, and legally complicated." "Speaking of family," I said, checking my phone. "Any word from V?" "She went to the shop," Jasper said. "She said she needed to check the spiritual perimeter." My phone buzzed. It was V. "Come back. Now. Emergency." "Let's go," I said, tossing the cup. Wick and wire was dark, but the door was unlocked. We found V in the back room. She wasn't crying. She wasn't burning sage. She was sitting at her laptop, her face illuminated by the harsh blue glow of a spreadsheet. "She cleared the accounts," V said, her voice shaking with a cold, quiet rage I had never heard before. "Not my accounts. The wedding accounts." "The wedding accounts?" "Dirk set up a joint fund," V explained, typing furiously. "For expenses. Catering, venue, flowers. He put in $500,000. $500,000? Jasper choked. "For a wedding? That is fiscally irresponsible." It wasn't just for the wedding, I realized. It was a slush fund. For bribes, permits, the fix-it money. "And it's gone." V turned the laptop around. "Balance, 0. Transfer initiated at 8:45 p.m. Right before the speeches started, I noted. She knew the sinkhole was opening?" Jasper asked. "No," I said. She knew the gig was up. When Chase threatened to expose the map, she didn't wait to see who won. She cashed out. She authorized the wire transfer while she was standing on that stage, smiling at the investors. "That's cold," Jasper said. "That's Lenie," V said bitterly. "She doesn't leave empty-handed. She marries them, milks them, and moves on. Usually she hits them with a divorce settlement. This time, she just hit send." "Where is she?" I asked. "Her phone is off," V said. "But she won't go to Atlanta. Too much traffic. And she won't fly commercial." "Private charter? Requires a flight plan filed 2 hours in advance," V said. "She's impulsive, but she's not patient." "Then she's driving?" "She took the Escalade," I reminded them. "But that car is a billboard. It's white, massive, and has Taggart Group painted on the door. State Patrol will spot it in 10 minutes. "Unless she swapped cars," V said. She looked at Jasper. "Where is your Prius?" Jasper patted his pockets. He froze. "My keys," he whispered. "I left them on the table near the stage." In the chaos. "Oh no!" Jasper ran to the window. The spot where he usually parked his beige, sensible Prius was empty. "She stole my car!" Jasper shrieked. "She stole a hybrid. That is Grand Theft Auto. And it has my NPR tote bag in the back." "She's trying to blend in," I said. "A beige Prius is invisible. It's the camouflage of the suburbs. And it has incredible gas mileage, Jasper moaned. She could be in Florida by now. No, V said. She's not going south. She's going to the only place she feels safe.
New Orleans? The coast, V corrected.
St. Simon's Island. She has a friend there, a jeweler who liquidates assets.
She's going to fence the ring, I realized.
And the jewels she was wearing, and launder the digital cash, V said. If she gets to the island, the money disappears into offshore accounts in the Caymans. Dirk loses everything. Chase loses the company. And my mother wins again.
V stood up.
She grabbed her keys from the hook. I'm not letting her win, V said. Not this time. You want to chase her? Jasper asked. V, she's dangerous. She's a predator. She's my mother, V said. And she stole from my friends. She tried to bury a body. She almost killed Chase to save her own skin.
V looked at me. Her eyes were burning with a fire I'd never seen before.
It wasn't the soft, spiritual light of a medium. It was the hard, cold light of a Bouvier.
Are you coming?
V asked.
Shotgun, I said.
Jasper sighed. I'll drive. It's my car she stole. I want to be the one to press charges.
We're taking the van, V said. It has the ram bar.
Ram bar? Jasper paled. We are not ramming my Prius. It has a 5-star safety rating.
We'll see,
V said, marching out the door, her emerald dress trailing on the floor. I followed her. The hum buzzed in the air. Hunt, chase, catch.
Usually, we chased dead things.
Tonight, we were chasing something much scarier. A mother with a getaway car.
Chapter 14. The Chase.
The drive to Marco Island takes 2 hours if you obey the speed limit and respect the laws of physics. It takes 90 minutes if you are V. Bouvier, running on adrenaline, caffeine, and unresolved childhood trauma.
Slow down,
Jasper said, gripping the dashboard handle until his knuckles turned white. The van is top-heavy. If we flip, we die. And I will be very upset about dying in a vehicle with such poor suspension.
If we slow down, she launders the money,
V said, her eyes fixed on the dark highway. Her knuckles were white on the steering wheel.
How do we know she's there?
I asked from the passenger seat, trying not to look at the speedometer, which was hovering near 90. Marco Island is big. Lots of places to hide a white Escalade.
I'm tracking her,
V said.
Psychically?
Digitally. V pointed to her phone mounted on the dash. Jasper's Prius has the Find My Hybrid app active. I forgot about that, Jasper said, unclamping his eyes. It rates my eco-driving score. Well, Lenie has a score of 0, V said grimly. She's doing 85 in a 55. She's killing your regenerative braking average.
She's a monster,
Jasper mourned. I watched the blue dot on the map moving steadily toward the coast.
Who is this jeweler? I asked.
Jean-Paul?
Jean-Paul,
V nodded. He's an old flame of hers from the 80s. He runs an estate jewelry shop that mostly sells things widows forgot they owned, or things that fell off trucks. He has a safe in his basement that doesn't exist on any floor plan. So we're breaking into a fence's house, Jasper clarified, while he is hosting your mother. Do we have a plan? A strategy? A weapon?
We knock, V said.
That's the plan? We knock, V repeated. And then I tell Jean-Paul that Lenie is wanted by the FBI for federal wire fraud. Jean-Paul hates the feds. He's allergic to subpoenas. He'll throw her out to save his own skin. And if he doesn't, then Merritt kicks the door in, V said. I like that part, I said, checking my boots. We crossed the causeway to the island. The marshes here were different, saltier, richer. The air smelled of old money and pluff mud. The blue dot stopped. "She's there," V said. "Ocean Boulevard. The big house with the lions out front." We pulled up to the house. It was a sprawling Spanish Revival mansion, dark except for a single light in the study. Jasper's Prius was parked in the circular driveway, looking small, beige, and apologetic next to a silver Bentley. "She didn't even hide it," Jasper bristled. "She parked it like she owns the place." We got out. The night air was heavy with humidity and jasmine. V marched up to the front door. She didn't hesitate. She banged the heavy brass knocker. Bang, bang, bang. Silence. Then the peephole slid open with a metallic snick. "We're closed," a voice said. French accent. Grumpy. "Go away." "Open the door, Jean-Paul," V said. "It's Veronica." "Veronica?" The locks clicked. The door opened. A small man in a velvet smoking jacket stood there. He looked like a ferret who had won the lottery and bought a monocle. "Little Veronica," he smiled, revealing gold-capped teeth. "You have grown. You look angry." "Where is she?" V asked, stepping into the foyer. "Who?" "My mother, Lenie. I see the stolen car in your driveway." "Ah," Jean-Paul sighed, closing the door. "Lenie, she is dramatic tonight. She demanded cognac. She demanded my laptop. She is in the study." "Step aside, Jean-Paul," V said. "Now, chérie." Jean-Paul blocked the hallway. "Lenie is a guest. I cannot just let you storm in and interrupt a transaction." "She stole $500,000, Jasper piped up from the back. "And my car." Jean-Paul looked at Jasper. He looked at the Prius through the window. "The beige one? That is a crime against aesthetics, not property." "She's wanted, Jean-Paul," V lied smoothly. "The police are 10 minutes behind us. If they find her here, dealing with you..." Jean-Paul's eyes widened. "Police? Here?" "Wire fraud," I added. "Interstate transport of stolen property. RICO Act violations." Jean-Paul paled. "I run a legitimate business. Mostly." "Then you won't mind if we take her," V said. "Before the sirens start." Jean-Paul stepped aside instantly. "She is in the study. I was never here. I am going to bed. I am asleep." He vanished up the stairs like smoke. V took a deep breath. She looked at me. Her hands were shaking, but her jaw was set. "Ready?" she asked. "Ready," I said. V pushed open the double mahogany doors to the study. Lenie was sitting behind a massive desk. She was typing on a laptop. Not hers, Jean-Paul's. A glass of cognac sat next to a pile of velvet jewelry pouches. "You took your time." Lenie didn't look up. "I expected you 20 minutes ago." "You knew we were coming?" V asked. "I know you, Veronica." Lenie closed the laptop. She smiled. It was a terrifying, serene smile. "You have a savior complex. You couldn't just let me go." "You stole the money," V said. "We want it back." "It's already gone." Lenie tapped the computer lid. "Cayman Islands. Untraceable." Poof. "Then we're taking you," I said, stepping forward. "Are you?" Lenie looked at me with amusement. "On what grounds?" "I didn't steal anything. Dirk gave me access to that account. I was a signatory. It's a civil dispute between ex-fiancés. The police will laugh at you." "You embezzled it," Jasper said. "That's fraud." "Prove it," Lenie challenged. "Dirk won't press charges. He's too embarrassed. He'd rather lose the money than admit he was played by a woman in a silk dress." She stood up. "So," Lenie said, picking up her purse, "unless you plan to kidnap me, I'm going to finish my drink, take a nap, and fly to Paris in the morning." She looked at V. "You should come," Lenie offered, her voice softening. "Paris is lovely in the fall. We could go shopping, fix that wardrobe, forget this swamp. V stared at her mother. For a second, I thought she might do it. The pull of the mother-daughter bond is strong. It's a gravity well that pulls you back in, no matter how hard you try to escape. But V didn't move. No, V said. No? Lenie raised an eyebrow. You're choosing this? The mud? The small town? These people? These people are my family, V said. And the mud is real. You're fake, Mama. You're just a ghost in a silk suit. Lenie flinched. The insult hit the mark. I raised you, Lenie hissed. I gave you taste. I gave you standards. You gave me an eating disorder and a complex, V corrected. And now I'm giving you a choice. V walked to the desk. She picked up Jean-Paul's laptop. Jean-Paul keeps backups, V lied. Keyloggers. He's paranoid. He knows every password you just typed. Lenie's eyes widened. He wouldn't. He's a fence, V said. He leverages everyone. If I give this laptop to the FBI, you wouldn't, Lenie whispered. I'm your mother. Return the money, V said. Transfer it back, all of it, to the Taggart Employee Pension Fund. The pension fund? I asked, surprised. Dirk doesn't deserve it, V said. But the workers do. Chase does. It's the only way to save the company. Lenie stared at her daughter. She calculated the odds. She looked at the laptop in V's hand. She realized, perhaps for the first time, that her daughter had learned how to play the game. Fine, Lenie spat. She opened the laptop again. She typed furiously. Transfer complete. Happy? Lenie slammed the lid. Delighted, V said. Now, get out. Excuse me? Get out of the country, V said. Go to Paris. Go to hell. I don't care. But don't come back to Fallows. If you do, I won't just bring the FBI. I'll bring the ghosts. Lenie looked at V. For the first time, she looked afraid. She saw something in V's eyes. The Bouvier magic, finally unleashed. You're ungrateful, Lenie sniffed. She grabbed her purse. I'm leaving. And take that hideous car with you. She stormed past us. We heard the front door slam. V slumped against the desk, exhaling a breath she seemed to have been holding for 30 years. Did you really bluff her? I asked. Does Jean-Paul have a keylogger? No. V laughed shakily. Jean-Paul still uses password 123. But Maman doesn't know tech. She only knows panic. You were amazing, Jasper said. Terrifying, but amazing. V looked at the laptop screen. The transfer confirmation was still there. I saved the company, V whispered. I saved Chase. You saved yourself, I said, putting an arm around her. Come on, let's go home. Wait, Jasper said, eyeing the crystal decanter on the desk. Can we steal some of this cognac? It looks expensive. Take the bottle, V said. Consider it a consulting fee. Chapter 15. The Heart. We drove back to Fallows in silence. The adrenaline of the chase was fading, replaced by the bone-deep exhaustion that only comes after a family crisis involving felonies. Jasper drove his Prius like he was cradling a wounded bird. Lenie had left the seat settings all wrong, and the radio was tuned to a French pop station. V slept in the back seat, clutching the bottle of cognac like a teddy bear. I watched the sun rise over the marshes. The light was soft, pink, and forgiving. It made the pluff mud look almost romantic. We pulled into the square at 7 a.m. It was still a disaster area, but the panic was gone. Now it was just a construction site with a really big hole. We found Chase sitting on the edge of the fountain, the part that hadn't fallen in. He was still in his ruined tuxedo, covered in dried mud, drinking a Red Bull. He looked like the survivor of a shipwreck. You look terrible, I said, sitting down next to him on the cold stone.
I feel terrible, Chase said, staring at the muddy water in the pit.
My dad is, well, he's sedated. The doctors say it's shock. I say it's embarrassment.
Did he leave?
He's at the motel, Chase said. He wants to leave town today. He wants to declare bankruptcy and pretend Fallows Landing never happened.
And you?
I'm staying, Chase said. I broke it. I bought it. It's my mess now.
It's a big hole to fill, I noted.
I have ideas, Chase said, rubbing his eyes. Geotextile lining, rock fill. Maybe we turn it into a sunken garden. A memorial for Tom Skerritt. We can make the water feature intentional.
That sounds expensive, I said.
And didn't Lenie steal your operating capital?
She did, Chase sighed. We're broke, Merritt.
I can't pay the crew past Tuesday. I can't even pay for this Red Bull.
About that,
V walked up, rubbing her eyes and yawning. She held out the laptop, which we had definitely, illegally kept. Check this, V said, handing it to him. Chase opened the laptop. He logged in with a frown.
His eyes widened.
$500,000? He whispered. The account balance. It's restored. Where did this come from?
Consider it a refund, V said.
From the Lenie Bouvier School of Hard Knocks. You got it back? Chase stared at her. How?
I asked nicely.
V smiled. With extreme prejudice and a bluff about the FBI.
Chase stood up.
He looked like he wanted to hug her, but he was covered in mud, and she was wearing vintage silk. He settled for shaking her hand with both of his.
Thank you, Chase said, his voice cracking.
This saves the company. It saves the pensions. It saves the town.
Just build the garden,
V said, and make it pretty. No brutalism. I want hydrangeas. Promise. Chase smiled.
He looked at me.
So, Chase said, I guess my consulting contract is over. Technically, I said, though you still owe me for the overtime and the sledgehammer rental. I'll pay you, Chase said, once the transfer clears. But Merritt, I was wondering.
Yes?
Maybe we could have dinner? Not a consultation. Just dinner. Somewhere without skeletons or sinkholes.
I looked at Chase.
He was handsome. He was smart. He was a good guy who had done the right thing when it counted. I looked over his shoulder. Jasper was standing by the Prius, aggressively polishing the dashboard with a wet wipe, pretending not to listen. He looked up. He met my eyes.
He froze.
The hum buzzed. Choice. I looked back at Chase. You're a nice guy, Chase, I said. And you have great taste in masonry. I sense a but, Chase said, his smile fainting. But, I said, I don't date clients, especially ones who are rebuilding their lives from a hole in the ground. You have a lot of work to do here, Chase. You don't need a distraction. You need a foundation. Chase nodded slowly. It keeps things simpler. It keeps things stable, I corrected. And right now, I really need stable.
Fair enough, Chase said.
Friends? Colleagues. I shook his hand. Call me if the ground moves again.
I will, he said.
I walked over to Jasper. He asked you out, Jasper said, scrubbing a spot on the steering wheel that didn't exist.
He did.
And I told him I have a strict policy against dating architects. Their plans never work out in the real world. Jasper stopped polishing. He looked at me. A slow, relieved smile spread across his face. That is a wise policy, Jasper said. Archivists, on the other hand, we are very reliable. We categorize everything. Are you asking me out, Abernathy? I am asking if you want breakfast, Jasper said, adjusting his glasses. At O'Connell's. The basement is flooded, but the griddle is on the second floor. I'm buying. I feel I owe you for the vehicle recovery mission.
Waffles? I asked. With extra syrup, Jasper promised.
And bacon.
Sold. We walked toward the cafe, the sun warming the bricks of the square. The hum was quiet for the first time in days.
The square was broken, yes, but it was safe. The silence wasn't the empty, terrified silence of a haunt. It was a peaceful silence, the silence of a job done.
But as I walked, I felt a tiny prickle on the back of my neck. A new note. Watch. I turned around. Chase was watching me, leaning against the fountain. But behind him, in the shadows of the alley, was someone else. A figure in a gray suit. Not a ghost. A woman. She was watching Chase. She was taking notes on a tablet. The hum buzzed. Lawyer. Shark. Trouble. I blinked, and she stepped back into the shadows. What is it? Jasper asked. Nothing, I said, turning back. Just a ghost of a headache. Let's get those waffles. But I knew it wasn't a headache. Book 5 was over. But the Taggart legacy? That was just beginning. And whatever was coming next, it wasn't going to be polite. Chapter 16. Concrete evidence. It took 2 weeks to drain the Fallows town square. It took another week to convince the town council not to sue the Taggart group into oblivion, mostly thanks to Chase gifting the town a memorial park master plan that included a state-of-the-art drainage system, free of charge. Today was the funeral. Not for the square, but for Tom Skerritt. We stood in the Potter's Field, a section of the cemetery reserved for the indigent, the unknown, and the inconvenient. But Tom wasn't unknown anymore. Chase had paid for a headstone. A real one. Polished granite, set deep. Thomas Skerritt, 1895 to 1924. Surveyor. He found the truth. It's nice, I said, laying a vintage brass surveyor's compass on the fresh earth. He would have liked the font. It's clean. It's sans serif, Jasper noted approvingly, adjusting his black tie. Modern. Efficient. Chase stood back, hands in his pockets. He looked tired, but lighter. He was staying in Fallows to oversee the remediation project. He had rented a small apartment above the bakery and traded his Lexus for a used pickup truck. Does it feel lighter? Chase asked me. The ground? I closed my eyes and listened. The hum was calm. The frantic, buzzing pressure was gone. The water table had found its level. The earth was content. It feels settled, I said. V was there too, wearing a discreet black dress. Vintage Chanel, a miraculous find from the Goodwill bin in Sarasota. Did your mom call? I asked her quietly. Once, V said, checking her phone. From Paris. She complained about the airline food and the lack of decent dry cleaning in the first-class lounge. She didn't mention the money. She knows better, I said. She's finding a new mark, V said, shading her eyes against the sun. But she won't find one here. I changed the locks on the shop. And the soul. We walked back to the truck, our feet crunching on the gravel path. So, Jasper said, loosening his tie as soon as we were out of sight of the grave. Another case closed. No more sinkholes. No more mothers. Can we have a quiet week? I have a backlog of tax returns that is giving me hives. Maybe, I said, though I saw Pasco looking at a cold case file yesterday. Something about a haunted lighthouse on Sanibel. Lighthouses are nice, Jasper said optimistically. They have stairs. Good cardio. I looked at the town, the boarded-up square, the construction crews working to rebuild the foundation. It wasn't perfect. Fallows was still broken, still sinking, still haunted. But it was ours. Merritt Vance! I turned. A woman was walking toward us from the cemetery gate. It was the woman I had seen in the alley. The gray suit. She didn't look like a ghost. She looked like a headache. She carried a leather briefcase and wore heels that were entirely inappropriate for gravel. "That's me," I said, stepping in front of Jasper. "Who's asking?" "My name is Sterling," she said. Her voice was crisp, like dry paper. "I represent the estate of Elias Vance." I froze. Elias Vance is my great-great-grandfather. He's been dead since 1890. "His body is dead," Sterling said, opening her briefcase. "His trust is very much alive, and according to the terms of the ancestral covenant, you have violated the NDA." "The what?" "The non-disclosure agreement," Sterling said. "You exposed the silent room. You disrupted the energetic seal of the folio, and now you've opened the throat." She handed me a thick, cream-colored envelope sealed with red wax. "You are being sued, Miss Vance," she said pleasantly, "for breach of spectral contract. The hearing is set for the full moon." "You can't sue a keeper," I argued. "I'm the only one left." "Oh, honey," Sterling smiled, and for a second her eyes flashed. Not human eyes, but something older. Obsidian. "Did you really think you were the only one? The Keeper's Council has been watching you since Book 1. The board is not pleased with your proactive methods," she added. "Expect a subpoena for your kinetic logs." She turned and walked away. Jasper stared at the envelope in my hand. "Merritt," he whispered. "Did you just get served by a ghost lawyer?" "I think so," I said, breaking the wax seal. Inside was a single card. The location wasn't a courthouse. It was a set of coordinates: 32 degrees north, 81 degrees west. Midnight. "Come alone." "Well," I said, looking at the coordinates, "there goes our quiet week." The hum buzzed. Test. Trial. War. "I'm going to need a bigger hammer," I said. "I'll drive," Jasper offered. "Let's go," I said. We got in the truck. The road ahead was foggy, but for the first time, I wasn't waiting for the ghosts to clear the path. I was driving straight through them.
Thank you for listening. Please visit me at winvalentine.com to stay up to date. Please subscribe, leave a comment, and review.